there has been an ongoing effort by leftists on Twitch to deplatform conservatives. One such tactic used is mass reporting. But if conservatives are operating within TOS, is it at all fair to take the space away from them? Lauren Southern, a far-right commentator, was recently banned for having an inappropriate stream title. Is transgenderism a mental illness? However, she simply copied the title from another channel, where she was participating in a debate. Should this be celebrated? Or I think it's Tyberius. I think it's you. If you could,
sorry about that. Let me see if I can fix that.
Yeah, no problem. Or are we poor as a community for not having a diverse range of opinions? Okay, and this is credit to Counterpoints for suggesting this. So this has been an ongoing thing since I've been on Twitch, right? There's been an effort to deplatform a lot of conservatives. Some of them are big, like really organized, and some of them are small. Others have been, some of them have been focused on like people who are like just truly egregious, and others on those I don't think we're so. But in any case, now we have a specific example of Lauren Southern being temporarily, it seems like temporarily suspended. I don't think she's permanently banned.
She was suspended. She wasn't banned, she was suspended.
Okay, yeah. And for just a stream title, and I mean, is it worth it? And like, should we want a Twitch that has a wider range of opinions, even opinions that you deeply disagree with? All right, so let's start with Alice, after all, for introductions.
Muted.
Now we know she's back.
Yeah, exactly. If I don't do that at least once a panel, then I've been replaced by a robot. So anyway, the whole topic. So Lauren Southern, I'm not really all that worried about, not being on Twitch. That's not a great loss to Twitch. I don't think it's great to have, just like every viewpoint. I'm not sure that, for any platform, it's good to like only have one set of viewpoints, but also Twitch is a gaming platform. Like, we're using it for political streams right now. But we're not its primary audience. We're not the biggest draw to here. It's people, failing to play League of Legends or, running around in Arma or whatever. Like, it's a gaming platform. So I also don't think Twitch needs to be some sort of neutral ground where everyone is allowed to, express every opinion they want to express. If Lauren Southern got banned from Twitch because she was streaming League of Legends and happened to still be Lauren Southern, I'd have a problem. But in this case, I don't really have that much of a problem with it. In general, would I like to see, more types of views? Yes. Do I think it's pretty bullshit that she got banned just for a stream title? Yes. But I don't know if anyone watched the stream. She probably didn't get banned just for the stream title. She probably got banned for the content, or suspended, pardon me.
There's a lot of words on this. Yeah. There was a lot being said on that shit. Yeah.
Yeah. So I definitely think that it's a little more complicated than just the stream title. But I also think that she wanted to position it as all these trans on Twitch. They want to get me banned for having a talk, just asking questions. And I don't think that's what happened here. But it's kind of complicated, and I've said a lot. So next.
Thank you. Jason, Society. An acolyte of Alice, clearly.
Sorry, it must be brain fog. Yeah, I see this as kind of a mixed bag. I think that obviously Lauren Southern has kind of a troublesome past, and what currently they suspended her for, it kind of coincides with some of the troubling past she's already had. As to whether or not you ban somebody and completely shut them down if they're within TOS, I don't think you do. I think TOS is there, and there are policies in place for a reason. If people are abiding by those policies and following the rules, then I don't see much of a problem with it. I may find somebody's opinions extremely abhorrent. I may absolutely disagree with what they have to say, but if it's within the terms of service of the platform, it's a little bit hard for me to encourage booting them. And I also don't think that dogpiling up on somebody and just reporting somebody for things like a title of a stream is necessarily okay. Now, if the content does go into something, some areas that may violate terms of service, sure, that's the content speaking for itself. But yeah, as far as jumping on people and doing mass reporting and things like that, I think the best way to counter this is just to have a better countervailing argument and take it at that. You know, that's how you win hearts and minds. As soon as you start banning somebody or shutting them down or turning their voice off, they're going to go to another platform or find another place to express their voice. So it doesn't really do any good. All they're doing is shifting platforms. For instance, we heard about Alex Jones. These guys got over like 7 million people now that I guess follow him through his website. And when he was on YouTube and all these other places, people are like, "Oh, well, that sounds like so many." Well, he got banned from all those places, right? So they all consolidated in one place, and now they get to be in that perfect little echo chamber, and they don't get any countervailing perspectives. So I think having those people on Twitch is important because you may be able to pull over some of their audience, or at least get them to think a little bit about their perspectives.
Yeah. All right. Counterpoints.
Yeah, so I agree with what's been said so far, but the frustration, am I roboting or anything?
No, you're
You're
good.
fine.
Okay, cool. So I agree with what's been said so far. My chief frustration is basically that, like, I think we need to have a clear way to communicate these contentious ideas in a way that's maybe like respectful, where we're trying to figure out what the truth is and communicate the way that we perceive things. And if those take like a religious bent, or if they take like a typically conservative bent, there has to be a way to communicate like complex or nefarious ideas without being a douche. And I think the TOS that was specifically violated or implied to have been violated was like implying the inferiority of a certain like group or something based off of like immutable characteristics. And so that's where I'm kind of curious. I would actually love it if Smugpug or Alice kind of discussed like what was being said during the show. That way we could kind of like maybe like I would love to check out the VOD actually, to kind of see like how rough it really got. Because basically that's the thing now is like we don't have any kind of communication between the polls. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, Lauren is representative of probably 55% of the Republican Party. So if we do want to get them more, understanding of whatever progressive norms are going on, then we're going to have to be able to communicate those ideas. And if we find contention and issues, then those are things that are going to have to be overcome. I wish there was a better way to frame conversations. That way, like we wouldn't have this like, oh, have you heard of like 1350, or have you heard of 41%, or have you heard of just like these like fucking mean, small, punchy responses that are difficult to contend with during like a live debate. But maybe we can explore that in the open, and I'll leave it for now.
Okay. All right. Ty, I had to mute you. Could you mute yourself because we're getting lots of yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go to Wordy.
All right. Well, welcome to week 42 of Lauren Southern Discourse. It's complicated. Basically, like there's two aspects here. Is Lauren Southern representing a lot of positions of like that have brought a lot of harm upon people, but we also recognize like the Twitter hate mobs and everything. Like, I don't trust these motherfuckers for anything at this point, because like I had to fight off like the whole Chaos is Mel group at some point, be like, oh, she's like, it's the whole she's a Nazi and all that shit. And then like the problem comes for me is I don't trust Lauren Southern in any way, right? Is I've seen some of her debates and shit, and the complicated relationship that comes here is that she was going to be on Twitch regardless of whoever stopped her or whatever. And the whole component here comes is with debate versus like TOSing. And I don't know if it's like TOS, but fundamentally is the arguments go is Lauren Southern's going to exist. We have to like be able to either like really be able to manage her arguments, and if you feel like you can't, then you should not. You basically have to like leave it up to the heavy contenders to be able to deal with that shit. But it's also the component is like where I understand like these ideas have been used to like really cause harm to a lot of people. And that's the frustration is like there's these heavy lines. It's where we have to be careful. And like I've seen some of her debates. and they're kind of dumb from like her rhetorical standpoint. So like it's complicated. You just be able to have to really manage it. And if you're going to have to do 2 TOS, I personally think that you really shouldn't do it unless it's really fucking severe.
Okay, Dooby.
Yeah, so I think it's indicative of a cowardice that I've noticed in a lot of these like spaces. It exists in right-wing spaces too. You try to bring up a I don't know, homosexuality being like a valid form of life, or valid like sexual identity or preference in like a far right-wing space, they're not going to let you have that discussion. They'll troll you, then they'll ban you, and they'll call you a bunch of bad words while they do it. So it exists on the far right too. But I think that is like what it's the same thing we're seeing here on the left, the far left. There are certain topics that make them uncomfortable that they think are so taboo you can't even speak about them, even though the question itself is transgenderism and mental illness. That's a question that a lot of Americans are asking themselves. So this is something that people in the mainstream don't understand. So these discussions need to happen, right? I don't think it makes sense to expect everybody to be caught up to where you are in your, evolved lefty mindset. A lot of people are so catching up. No, they're not there yet. And for them to get there, you need to have the discussion. It needs to be a public discussion. So I think it's really shitty. Yeah, I think the space is worse off for it.
Thank you. Next, Smug.
Yeah, so I'll try not to be too long with it. So I mean, first in terms of TOS, like even just in the title alone, the suspension is warranted within Section 5, Subsection 3 of TOS. Content expresses inferiority based on protected characteristics, including but not limited to statements related to physical, mental, or moral disorders. Negative statements related to mental health, e.g., quote, protected characteristics, unquote, is a form of mental insanity. Now, like if we look at the title, is transgenderism a mental illness? Well, I'm sure some people would like to apologize as, oh, well, they're just asking a question. But when we look at the panel, it's literally just a group of people who've had a history of making these dog whistly passive statements that basically either imply or otherwise would invertly imply that they do believe, like in this, what Twitch is constituted as harassment and or hate speech. Like, should it be in the public discussion? Sure, but again, though, like as we all know, Twitch is not a fucking public platform. It's a private platform that as Alice said, was used for gaming that we now use for a completely different purpose. I think thirdly, I think we are all kind of like giving ourselves too much credit because we all are running off this romanticization that we're fucking converting people online, whether it's on the panel space. Like, to be real, like the more you're more likely to convince someone in a one-on-one after 6 hours in a private talk. Like the idea that, for example, like that I'd be able to convince any of you guys here, like especially if you guys have a very opposite view, like I'm not gonna fucking like communism pill Tiberius about how great China is, like no matter how much we romanticize how great my arguments are and how great my counter arguments are to his, like that's just not feasible. And I think this is just this is just another topic about us thinking that we're better at convincing people than we actually are.
Thank you so much, Captain A. Jones.
Yeah, man, Smug hit the nail on the head. I think that like we're fooling ourselves if we think that we, especially the smaller people among us, in stature, I mean, are able to convince people. Like it seems like an impossible task, and it also seems like most of the people who have like pretty what we would all probably consider abhorrent views are they're going to have those views whether we like it or not, and we're not going to be able to convince them, and I think unless we're rhetorically really good, which most of us are just not, and I think that we need to kind of know our place as like the individual Twitch streamers that we are and what we're capable of. I'm not a political space where right wingers come in and I change their fucking mind. That's not what my channel is personally about. You know what I mean? Like, so I just know who you are and what your capabilities are, And like, yeah, going back to what somebody said, don't debate Lauren Southern if you're not good at fucking debating, because you'll make her and her arguments look really good.
Okay, Tiberius.
Yeah, so I got 3 quick little points here. The first one is regarding Twitch, is that Twitch is the final authority here. So if they decide in their TOS no one can be named Tiberius D, well, then I'm out. But that's just how this particular one rolls. Regarding the diversity of opinion, well, I'll put it in this way. I can't control for the audience. I don't know what the audience wants. I just know that, as far as I'm concerned, fuck the audience. If you want to be a part of my audience, that's wonderful, but you're along for the ride with me. And the ride, at least for me, is that I am here to talk to you guys, because I assume that you guys know something that I don't, that you can add to the worldview in which I have that can enrich me into being a better person. So I don't care what the audience wants. I want to talk to you guys. That's why I'm here. So anyway, to going into the third part, as far as LS, look, not popular. Famous people, infamous people tend to get a bad rap. I don't necessarily know where one should begin and end. I understand she's got a problematic past. I don't know much of the details with it because I don't have time for that shit. I hear shit about Destiny. I hear shit about Vosh. I hear about all these famous peeps. I honestly don't care. If I get a chance to talk to them, I will talk to them just like I'm meeting you on the street. And I'm going to try to give you the benefit of the doubt, even if I've heard bad shit about you, because I think that is the moral and ethical thing to do. And that's just generally where my principles align. I'm going to use that as my opening. Thank you very much.
All right, open to the panel.
So first off, Smug and Captain, maybe you two are just not persuasive. You ever consider that? I've seen plenty of people that come onto these panels and convinced of positions that they're vehemently against at the start. I've been convinced things. I convinced other people of things. So maybe you two are just bad at it. Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you shouldn't engage. Right? If that's the problem,
can you give us a single example of somebody coming on the panel?
Somewhere else.
All right, you came in.
Wait. Could you give us a single example of somebody on a panel changing their mind
that is
on a radically?
Okay, compared to your debates, Dooby, where you intentionally play the devil's advocate and shit. Like you intentionally play the adverse role as if you think that's changing people's minds.
How does that feel?
Secondly, changing people's minds. Okay,
no.
See that,
how does it know that I can argue for positions I don't even believe in better than you can argue for the shit you believe in?
Then you see.
Isn't that embarrassing?
Then you see those people on a panel a day later, and guess what? They're arguing the same fucking shit they were the day before. So
bullshit.
Good job, Doobie. Oh, bullshit. Okay, as if we don't have fucking logs. Hold up.
Okay. Hold on. There are a couple of dumb points here. Okay, Alice and Smug, a gaming platform, congratulations. If it's being used significantly in some way for some type of platform, well, unfortunately, it's that kind of platform now. And so the problem comes fundamentally is the ability to kind of manage discourse, right? Is if Twitch considers this TOS, cool. Deal with her then, but like this fundamentally kind of boils down to this whole conversation, right? Is the reality is like I'm trans, I'm non-binary. I understand most people are not going to be like either full accepting or like on board with me, and like so the problem comes is that when we talk about Lauren Southern, we're kind of like creating this whole entire like monolith of this entire movement. So we have to understand is like things. Opinions do get changed, right? It's like you make this whole argument of like where opinions never get changed. It's objectively bullshit, okay? If anything, listening to Connor's arguments have changed me at least a little bit. So like this whole argument that we don't change anything is a really stupid argument because the reality is what you're expecting is instantaneous results, right? Things do change, but they're unfortunately like a fucking boulder down a hill that unless you get it over that hill, it doesn't start hitting. So like that's the whole problem, right? Is what you're looking at is the whole Sisyphus boulder going up and you think it never changes, but unfortunately there is a top of the hill where you can result and change. Now the problem comes is how we kind of go about catalyzing that. And I would say is like, I would think if people are going to make arguments, right? I don't give a fuck about political vote, fuck them a little bit, but at the same time, we have to understand Lauren Southern does have a lot of influence. He does have a lot of control. There are two aspects where you can ban them and basically like completely throw them into the echo chamber, or two is you can kind of like build up your infrastructure to where you can effectively combat Lauren Southern, right? The problem comes is we have a lot of competing personalities who all say fuck each other. We have Destiny, Vosh, all that shit, and they're not working together to kind of be able to argumentatively deal with her, and that's the issue more than anything.
So
Alice was trying to say something.
Sorry. I managed to do this again. People, I mean, the thing. So where do you, the thing is that like I hear what you're saying. We're saying like, oh well, maybe people aren't good enough to destroy her in a debate, which isn't true because she got utterly destroyed in that debate. But the thing is that this was a terms of service violation. Twitch is not here to platform anyone. Twitch doesn't give a fuck about platforming anybody. Twitch is here to make money. And so if it makes them more money to say, all right, we're going to make sure that nobody can speak badly about trans people and that makes us more money, then that's what they're going to do. That's
Yeah.
the thing here is like, it's not about convincing people. That's not what Twitch is here for.
Wait,
It doesn't.
Sorry. If I can respond real quickly, I'm not talking about Twitch, right? Twitch is doing its job, whatever. I'm talking about the broader conversation of like, how do we deal with this as a broader community? How do we deal with discourse? How do we deal with changing people's minds and affecting them? That's the real issue here more than anything. It's not just about like Twitch. We basically have to build into this kind of like larger thing that just extends around the rest of like the United States and the world. Is like trans people exist. And then people are just like feeling weird about them or like absolutely hate them. So we have to figure out how to deal with that.
Your answer is get good.
you
Okay,
do
Alex,
it
can
not
I-
going on fucking Twitch and thinking you're changing people's minds via Twitch.
Oh, shut the fuck up. Okay, Alice, please.
Yeah, dude. Okay, Mr. Fucking Nazi server.
Dooby doo.
We'll go
Alice.
to Dooby and then Counterpoints.
Scooby
Alice,
Dooby.
first of all, Alice, I love you. Okay. Secondly, I think that the issue isn't so much that it was a violation of TOS. I agree. If it's a violation of TOS, it is what it is, right? It does make Twitch more money to have their community be as inclusive as possible, right? So if that means you need to kick out people that aren't inclusive, then yeah, they're going to do that. That's fine. I think the issue is that so what I got from the topic was that people who dislike Lauren Southern reported her, but not the leftists that also had the same title. Right, so there was like a bias in the reporting because they were targeting her to get her off the platform because she's right wing. Not so much that they just hated the topic in general, but they saw this as an opportunity to get rid of her and leave the lefty on that had the same video title.
I don't see that. And also, I just want to mention she was the only one streaming on Twitch. Everyone else was on YouTube, actually, and nobody
Oh,
else
is that
had that
true?
stream.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody else had that stream title either.
Like,
Everybody
the original-
else.
That's a little different.
So
then.
my
The
understanding.
original panel was politically provoked. They were the host of it. Lauren was the only. Yeah.
So my
that was correct.
understanding.
Lauren was the only Twitch streamer.
My understanding is that it was politically provoked title was debate, and then
Yes.
the transgenderism thing, right?
No, it was
that-
just debate.
It was
trans
just debate.
issues.
Okay, all right. So I have a different understanding of the situation. Okay.
Let me look it
That's
up real
because-
quick.
It's because Lauren Southern reported as, well, this is just their debate topic, which it was. It was the debate topic, but everyone else except for her specifically did not put it in their title because it's terms of service breaking to do that. So nobody else did that.
Yeah, but
So,
was
so
that-
the
so you're
real
saying-
question is:
Yeah,
Did
so
Lauren Southern do this for clout and to play the
What?
victim card on Twitter?
No.
Well,
She thought
that's
she was
okay.
Not
the-
Machiavellian. All right, I'm just asking.
Okay, so
This is like
so-
saying that someone wore a skirt in LA and hey, did they get raped?
No,
on her?
no, it's
Don't
it's
say
not
shit.
like
wait,
saying that,
wait,
dude.
guys.
Literal victim
Nice
blame,
try.
don't do that.
Nice try, Froggy.
It's literally.
I'm about to demote you to
trans
civilian at this
issues,
point.
Okay,
Like,
So,
it's debate panel trans issues.
You are a fraud. You
Let's
have
go
zero
to-
authority.
Let's
over
go
humans.
to Counterpoints.
Yeah, so okay, so I want to address a few things. We're fooling ourselves if we think we're convincing anyone. That's a little frustrating for me because like I think that like we're fooling ourselves if I think that I'm gonna move like kind of like Wordy said, where like I think that any of y'all are gonna instantaneously adopt my position by the end of the debate. I don't think that's ever gonna happen. But what I do think can happen is I can plant seeds, and then over time those seeds can kind of grow into like a cohesive worldview. And also on top of that, like we do use each other as creators in order to platform our ideas into the audience. I actually have the antithetical view to what Tiberius said. I'm not here for y'all. Like I am in a way. Like if we can have a good conversation and bullshit and like have a good time and y'all can give me some interesting things to research, that's fucking awesome. But what I am here for is the audience because I want to drag people, as many people as possible, gravitationally towards my perspective. And even if they're in different political factions, I want them to either have a hesitation or a doubt about their preconceived worldview. And then I want them to take a millimeter of a fucking step my way. And that's my thing. So when it comes to, I think that I do not have the South Park philosophy of language, that words are just words and nobody ever changes their fucking mind. That's bullshit. I've learned more things over the past fucking 15 years, and my politics, like 10 years ago, are not the same as they are right now. They're not even the same as they were 5 years ago. And this is because of digital consumption of interesting arguments from high-level players. That's why I changed my mind, is because they hit me with logical arguments that I hadn't considered, and they didn't jive with my worldview. So I had to shift because of the cognitive dissonance. Finally, like the thing about it is, this conversation is going to happen regardless of whether or not we like it or not. Kind of like Alice was saying, like, if this isn't happening on Twitch, there's going to be another platform that's going to host it, whether that's like YouTube or BitChute or whatever. So the point being is, like, these perspectives, whether you like it or not, are part of the normal discourse. It's 55% of the Republican Party is in line with Lauren Southern. Matt Walsh and Tucker Carlson are currently saying the exact same talking points on Fox News. So you either fucking take the talking points, find some good arguments, and start beating people over the fucking head with those arguments to make them feel like assholes, or you let them live in their silo. And I'm a fucking liberal, which I know is disgusting, but I believe in the fucking marketplace of ideas to some degree, and I think you should come up with better arguments and start beating the fuck out of people. One, because it's fun, and two, because I think it works.
Go ahead, Ty.
So counterpoints.
Yeah, I definitely want to get on
Ty,
that.
and then Captain Jones.
Appreciate it. Just a little background. Me and Connor have been going about this for a while, and it's nothing against Connor. I'm just more of a different philosophy. I believe that you have to want to change your mind, or if you will, you have to be at least open to it. You want to engage. You want to be part of the conversation. I don't usually, and forgive me, I shit on the audience a lot, and I shit on people in general. I don't have a lot of respect and love for people in general. That's a me thing, right? But as far as where this goes, is that I feel like you actually have to want to be involved. You want to participate. You want to communicate. If you're actually even remotely willing to change your mind, you have to be here. And so, in a general sense, here, I'm the kind of person that's like, look, if anyone's actually open to, they're going to be trying to play in some sort of game. Sure, they might be watching Vosh or Destiny just to hear a different opinion, but that's largely not what's going to change their mind. It's going to be talking to somebody who has a different viewpoint, who can actually explain why they feel that way, or at least how they've come to that particular conclusion, and they can empathize it, or they can metabolize it into a greater sense of being. It's lived experience for most people. They need to understand what you've been through to understand why you believe what you believe. And so in a general nutshell, that's where I actually come into, and where my philosophy is a lot different than Connor's, is that I think you have to play the game. And so for that to happen, you need to have a diversity of thought and excuse me, you have to have a different sorry about that. You have to have a diversity of thought and opinion, but you also have to have a platform that allows it. Does Twitch have to be that? No. But somewhere would be good. And I'll end with that.
All right, we'll go to Captain Jones and Wordy.
Yeah, so I just want to respond to the little tiny frog, as well as Counterpoints, who's a cool dude. So I was pretty careful with my words. Maybe you're responding mostly to Smug. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe you could clarify for me. But what I said was to know your place and to know how good you are as a debater. So, like, I didn't say that people shouldn't go and debate Lauren Southern and win in the marketplace of ideas. I said that probably none of us should go debate Lauren Southern and try to beat her in the marketplace of ideas. So yeah, those are two very separate things. And I think, like, it's so, if you want to convince, in my opinion, if you want to convince somebody who's like an extremist, then it's pretty good to be someone who has like experience with those kinds of things. Maybe you were an extremist yourself and got brought out somehow, and now you can relay your experience. There's people who do that. So like that seems like a really good thing. But most of us, or maybe some of us, maybe I won't say most of us, but I would say a lot of us, whatever the fuck, are not really capable of that. It's different now if we're talking about people who are in the middle. If we're talking about people in the middle, then yeah, I mean, I've totally talked to people, random people, and like we've met on some either you know, more towards my side than when it started or whatever. But like, you're fooling yourself if you're coming on a panel and thinking that you're going to change like one of our minds, especially if we have a really opposing view to you.
You make me vomit. Okay, I'm like on the edge of like demoting you to civilian. You just lied to us, right? Because after Smug spoke, you said he hit the nail on the head, which implies, I think, to everybody here that you agreed with everything he said. Right
But
now,
I
you're
didn't
saying,
disagree
"Hey, I was
before,
careful with
so-
my words." Now it's just saying, "Hey, we just need to be careful about who speaks to Lauren Southern." I don't think anybody here can do it. That's not what Smug said.
I think Dooby, you make the perfect case for exactly what I'm saying.
Oh,
You're
man.
an online debate
Here it
bro
comes.
who's claiming
Yep.
that
Here
they
it
know it
comes.
all, who makes the
So
second,
so me
who makes the
holding
third claim,
holding
who makes the third
Mr.
claim
Jones
that
to his
they are the
opinions,
debate bro
right?
god,
Exactly
to
what he
like
said.
be able to change more people. Like you literally, and then you interrupt.
So me
for
pointing out,
Bloodsport.
you
So,
just
like,
interrupted
it's,
me.
the irony.
You literally
hey,
just did that.
If you didn't listen, so like the irony though that you're
Okay,
actually
I'll let you
proving
finish.
my point about how like ineffective like this platform is, and yet ironically you're the one arguing how like this is somehow actually like de-radicalizing people. And apparently you didn't listen to like the second part that I mentioned in regards to how people could actually be changed, like through like long one-on-one conversations, for example. Like,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
hey,
panels, you're not
Exactly.
fucking
You
convincing
are-
anybody.
you are-
Exactly.
Like,
That's
like, Wordy's, like,
exactly
Wordy's
why I
biggest
said I
one,
agreed with
you know,
you
and like
100%.
You can't say-
Okay.
Wordy's big counter to me.
Oh my
Wordy's like big counter to me was, oh well, we're not talking about
The
Twitch, we're talking about the
dishonesty from
broader
these two.
sphere of the internet.
Fraud,
No
you
one needs to
have
have- no
zero
one needs to have
right to
trouble
say
saying
anybody
that.
else is
Twitch,
dishonest. Come on,
because
You
man.
can't even hold to the
Nice
thing you said
try.
5 minutes ago.
Try with a
Let's
different,
go.
Okay.
Let's go.
different
Wordy.
audience.
Wordy and counterpoints.
I didn't realize. I didn't
Jason.
realize Lauren Southern was present on this panel. Is she in bar for all form now? Anyways, like
Got him.
the problem comes here is that ultimately, like setting aside the whole ego bullshit, the reality is like this whole framing of like extremists, right? The problem comes is a lot of normal people, right? A lot of people, like the Overton window in America is kind of fucked, where the Overton window is either trans hesitant or anti-trans. Like a lot of people, normal fucking people who just do their own life. They don't do violent extremism. They don't participate in the Proud Boys and shit. They're literally just like, weird, fucking weird kids. And like, that's literally what they're thinking. And that's the problem. Is like the reality, this conversation is happening. And yes, I admit you're not going to turn person into a perfect, oh, I love trans people, just like through these online debates. But fundamentally, every single debate Lauren Southern has been in has been a one-on-one or 2v2. And so every single time she argues is a direct argument there. If she's doing this and we have people who are capable of fighting her, and there's like the whole conversation that comes is like how much you're going to increase her influence versus like in terms of like her continuing to exist. Like if I came up and I did some real hardcore preparation for Lauren Southern, I'm not going to do anything like to basically increase her audience or anything like that, right? There's the whole concern is the relationship between argumentation and audience increase. You might be able to change some of their minds. You will not ever change all of their minds, but changing some of their minds is better than doing nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, and so this is kind of one of the things that gets frustrated because like I know that panels are more of a shit show than one-on-one debates. It's just fundamentally true. And the amount of productive discussion that you can have in a panel is difficult when you have like 9 people. Literally, like people in my comments are like, I can't get anything out of a debate because everybody's fucking yelling at each other all the time. But the truth is that despite that one complaining comment, my panel discussions or my hyper-aggressive debates metrically blow the fuck out of some good faith one-on-one hyper charitable fucking discussion over like philosophy of ideas. Okay. And I love having those discussions. And there's a smaller, smarter, more based audience that does love one-on-ones. But the truth is that most people are cannibalistic, Coliseum watching fucking bloodthirsty fucking monsters. And in order to teach them even the smallest thing about politics, you have to cover it in spectacle. I love spectacle. I love fighting. I love arguing. I love all that shit, which is why I've been here week after week after week after week. But at the same time, like you're simultaneously shit talking the art form, if you want to call it that, which might be true. But also you have to realize that this has like 5-10 times the reach that the fucking one-on-one good faith shit has. So like this is where like it feels like egghead. Like I'm an intellectual fucking snob, but at the same time, like I have no illusions about what we do. 80% of this is showmanship and bullshit, and 20% of it is real discussion about real policy with real implications. And in order to get people to fucking engage with the 20%, you have to have the 80%, or 70% of the fucking people aren't even going to watch it. So,
Okay. Thank you, Jason, and then Ty.
So, it wasn't that long ago that I was of the opinion that these online debates and these platforms couldn't change anybody's mind. I've changed my position on that, and the reason why is because I started thinking about my own lived experience and how I moved further to the left. And to be honest with you, like I moved further to the left because I listened to different streamers. Hate me if you will, but TYT was a big motivator in me moving to further to the left. When I hear people debate and make good ideas, or make good position, have good positions, my mind can be changed because I think I'm fairly enlightened and I'm not so ground into a position that I can't look at context and the world around me. And I think a lot of people are more reasonable like that. Will that do it alone? Hell no. But if you're having the conversations too with people outside of that, yeah, I think that it's a marriage that can work. I do think it's important to have countervailing arguments because all it does is it makes you better at your argumentation. Somebody like Lauren Southern, holy shit, at my stage in this whole debate bro thing, if you want to call it that, I wouldn't chance it. I'd probably get demolished. I'm not there yet, but I recognize that. And I think that, that plays a big role in it, Yeah, and that's the other thing. Most of the lefties that are debating her have equal or less platform than she does, have equal or less people that are watching them. So are they platforming her or is she platforming them? And especially when they own her, is she platforming them and dropping little seeds of doubt there? And sometimes it's just the little seeds of doubt in combination with having those conversations outside of Twitcherverse that create a change in somebody's mindset. So I think it really can be both of those things. I do agree that countervailing arguments have to be there. I do agree that there's a certain point at which they become damaging. And that's where, there are moderations and where we have TOS and things like that so that we can push out those more harmful ideas.
Ty?
Yeah, I want to piggyback off our good friend Wardy here for a second regarding the Overton window. And that is one of the things that absolutely infuriates me and drives me insane is that the Overton window had a brick thrown through it. And it sucks because any and almost every conversation that you can have in the political discourse is here. I hate that. I hate that on the left, you've got people trying to revitalize communism. Yeah, I know it's an issue. Can we table that one? But on the other side of that, I hate that. Like, we cannot walk away from 1350. Particularly dealing with Connor with this all week. I would love for this to fuck off. I really would. The problem is that right now we're in a political realignment. The parties are changing, demographics are changing, and how we do politics is going to fundamentally rewrite itself over the next 5 to 10 years. It sucks. It's a painful ass process, but we have to go through it. The question is, how is it going to end up? And that's where we get to play the part at, which I know Connor's wanting to jump on this. As far as what's going on in this platform, some of you have known me for a while. I came onto this platform and I was a libertarian. Now I'm more of a right-wing populist. And it's actually not that people have pushed me in a particular direction that is disgusting to you, maybe. It's actually some of these economic arguments that go, hey, look, I can't do this by myself. I don't have the power without some kind of backing. And now part of it's my own lived experience where I'm trying to put myself through school. But the moment that I get sick or I need to visit the doctor, I'm out $400 fucking dollars. Yeah, that's really hard to deal with. And I 100% get people when they say they're upset and the system doesn't have their back. I'll pass it off.
Yeah, so if I can back up Ty real quickly, this is the other thing that's incredibly frustrating for me because I started punching right content-wise a little bit. I've had a few discussions, debates, whatever. And the thing about it is, like, so many of these people are fucking siloed that I'm speaking Latin to them. And this is where, like, I'm I agree with them on a shitload of things. I agree with them on guns. I agree with them on immigration control. I agree with them on like patriotism and some level of civic nationalism. I agree with them on American hegemony. I agree with them on like the nature of the police state. I agree with them that like a capitalism is preferable to socialism, and that like maybe mixed economy capitalism is the best thing going forward. I agree on probably like 60-70% of the shit that we talk about. And I'm treated like a fucking enemy because basically what's happened is for the past 5 years, they've been going to the same YouTube pages over and over and over again to get reactionary content. And what I mean by reactionary is not some like malevolent thing. I mean literally, hey, look, some fucking leftist Twitter dumb fuck said some dumb shit. Hey, some mainstream media asshole said some dumb shit. Isn't the left bad? And that's literally all of the content that people have been producing for 5 fucking years without any level of like criticism or coherence or slowdown or breaks or anything like that. So what's happened is we have a whole bunch of people who have this like very vague, nebulous idea of what it is to be on the right. And primarily what it has to do is not being on the left. Because the left is bad and it's dumb and it's woke and it's CRT and it's fucking drag queen story hour and it's, you know, non-binary blah 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 and like all that. I'm not kidding.
Why is any of that? Wait, what? Why is any of that bad?
Okay, so
No, but that's the whole problem with the arguments. If I can jump off, Connor.
Well,
Look, kind of.
yeah, you can't because I'm freezing.
Okay. Ready?
But so.
Sure. Like, okay. So the thing is, it's not that it's bad. It's kind of how people are going to be entrenched in these areas. And this really calls into question kind of the way like a different platforms structure like their engagement. Like when we talk about YouTube for such a long time is like the whole the alt-right pipeline and shit. And this is the problem is like when you think about Twitter timelines where like this is the argument I heard is like finding a way to kind of restructure to where these people can be like influenced to different sides and opinions without having to be stuck in these echo chambers is because you can basically curtail and like affect through the engagement process to where you can be stuck in these areas. And so what I would say is if we want to take off the burden of debate and influencing popular opinion, what we could do is kind of put pressure on these companies to change the way they structure their engagement policies.
But
Yeah.
can I address this because this is where it can feel like I'm already feeling the reaction in my audience without even looking at chat.
No.
Hold
on.
This is where it can feel incredibly paternalistic. Like basically like everybody would be a liberal or progressive if only they understood and if only the fucking feedback or if only they understood our ideas better, they would all be liberals and
Wordy's an ANCAP. What are you talking about?
Okay.
What the fuck?
God, he's an
Oh, aren't you?
No, he's an ANCOM. You just said
How do you know?
Oh, ANCOM. Oh, fuck. I'm so sorry. Oh, for fuck's sake.
I'm almost done, I promise.
Most of the people couldn't even fucking tell you the difference between those two.
We'll go to counter, and then we'll Captain, Dooby, and Tyberius.
But okay, but this is where I'm saying like I'll try to be brief, but like this is where I'm saying like it can feel incredibly paternalistic because it's like, oh well, if we just fix the algorithm, then all these people would be like more progressive or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if we were able to have these discussions in like a better way where people were being exposed to each other and willing to just fight out through the fucking ugly bullshit, then we might actually be able to understand each other. And that's like the shitty thing about this is I literally spend like 50% of my energy not even fucking arguing with people over my real arguments or their real arguments, just over fucking like ideological fucking buzzwords and calling each other cucks and shit. Like it's not even the actual fucking ideas, which is really frustrating.
It sounds like maybe you're not doing that great of a job switching these radicalized people over to even like a moderate side. I guess that's kind of my point.
So
is that,
do I just
so
give
hold
up?
on, I wasn't finished. I was literally one sentence in. No, you don't give up if that's your thing, dude. I guess go for it. But I'm just saying, don't fucking fool yourself. Don't sit here and act like you've pulled so many people over to one side or the other. Like, I'm just saying, let's be realistic. Like when I asked Dooby, hey, give me an example of one time somebody's had an extreme position on a panel, and then at the end of it, they've redacted, like they're now on the other side of their extreme opinion. Give me one fucking time. One time. And if you can't provide that, then you can shut the fuck up, you fucking fraud.
Hold on. So if I give you one right now, you're going to have to accept your demotion to civilian. Do you accept?
A radical position.
You're gonna have to accept your
I'm
demotion.
waiting for it.
Is that do you agree?
You're
And not
wrong.
even not
Hey,
even that. I want to tell you how I pull
hey.
someone over to my radical position.
Okay,
So if
Hang on,
it's
stop.
a one-on-one, and
It wasn't one-on-one. It was on the Reverie.
So that's not what I'm fucking talking about, you fucking idiot. Jesus fucking Christ.
We're talking about
to keep
panels.
up, you
We're talking
moronic
about
frog.
panels.
Okay, I'm just saying. See, here's the thing. You
Wait,
try
hold on. Are you
to
talking about one-on-one
take something I
conversations or
say,
panels?
and
Answer
then
the
you
question.
go,
I can give you
let me
both.
see if I can shift the goalpost, make his argument
Okay,
sound even
all
worse.
right, panel.
And you misrepresent everything everyone else says, and then you think you're a good debater.
Ramble.
Fuck
Okay.
off. You're a
Panel.
fucking
Answer-
frog.
Panel
Get the fuck
or
out of here.
1v1?
And who
Panel
is it
or
then?
1v1?
Who the fuck is it then?
Panel or 1v1?
That you did it on a panel. On a panel.
Okay, she's gonna be mad at me, right? But our good friend Amanda Smash. Okay, I'm not gonna tell you what I convinced her of.
What was her
But
radical fucking
no,
idea?
I pulled
What was her
her- no,
radical
listen,
idea,
listen,
you fucking lion ass frog? You were making up some bullshit.
Okay, you're rambling. I pulled her to a radical position. Now, if you want the other example, people
Okay.
one-on-one.
Are you gonna say?
No,
are
listen,
you gonna
no,
say
stop,
what
stop,
that position
stop.
is, or are you just
No,
gonna keep fucking rambling?
I'm not gonna do that.
Because you're a fucking
However,
idiot right now. You
okay,
sound
listen.
moronic.
If you want an example of someone being convinced out of a radical position or being anti-lefty position, I can give myself. Alice here convinced me. I was
in a panel.
No, listen.
On a panel.
I gave you the
panel.
You're not
Okay,
paying,
then
you're not paying
I guess
attention.
that
You're not
doesn't
paying attention.
fucking count.
You're not paying attention.
You can't hear. Come on, just finish your point, Dooby.
Okay, so the panel example is Amanda. The off panel example is actually Alice and I. Alice and I had conversations with other people there sometimes.
Cool. I'm
sometimes
glad you had an
one-on-one,
off-panel example.
About shut up.
It's not what I was talking
shut
about.
up,
So
shut
I
up,
guess
shut
you're
up,
Come on,
shut up,
really.
Captain, knock it off.
About trans issues. I used to be far less friendly to trans issues than I am right now. Alice convinced me otherwise. Right. So in both settings, this exists. This happens. People change their fucking minds. People aren't like set in stone when they say they think something. You can change people's opinion. Like I don't know.
I used to
I don't
be
know
a
how you
fucking
think.
9/11 truther. No shit. People's
stop.
opinions can
All
change.
you need to do.
Fucking,
Okay. Then
like
what's
seriously,
the
dude.
fucking
You were
problem?
so
How do you
bad
think
faith
people change
that
their minds?
you think you make some really good points.
Oh my
but
god.
in the end, at the end of the day,
this is why
you're just
you're
a tiny little
down to
frog, my man.
You're down to the civil now. I'm
See,
sorry.
like I just said,
humiliating
I have actually been shifted from radical fucking ideas. So I understand what it feels like to believe in stupid ideas and how people get out of it. Okay. And it still doesn't make me good at doing it. And again, I asked for what the example was in this open panel that you convinced Amanda to what was the position?
A position that I think most of you would consider radical.
Holy fuck. Could you actually just say it instead of
I'm not
dodging
gonna-
around
I'm not
it?
gonna
You
do that.
dishonest
You can
little
ask her.
frog.
You can ask her
Okay, all
yourself.
right. We're just gonna leave it.
Okay.
We're gonna leave it
So you
there.
don't have anything,
We're
actually.
gonna have
You're
to
just
leave it.
pulling shit out of your ass.
Everyone, shut up!
Just
Shut up! Thank you. Great. We'll move it. Leave it there. All right. We're going to Tiberius counter wordy.
Appreciate that. I want to pick up on the little bit of exchange between Cap and Wordy there for a second about why is that bad. I hate to I hate to frame in this notion. A lot of these concepts, trans people or people, are alien to a lot of people. I know that you don't like that, but you have to accept that. I live in Trump country. If I told people that trans people are just like you, they would literally lose their shit. Okay? Which is hilarious because if I brought our good friend Samantha Banana into my community, they would hate the idea of her until they talked to her. And then they'd be like, I love this person. Shit talking, absolutely acts like anybody else from around here. But she's also from Oklahoma, so she'd fit right in here. That is the problem. That these concepts are alien and inhuman, not humanized to a lot of people. And if you think that you can just let them go away, you can leave them just behind, that's a lot of fucking people, my dude. That's an absolute fuckload of people.
Well, you're also really good at expanding what I said beyond the very, very clear parameters that I set. But that's fine. I'm not going to repeat myself. So please, somebody else go ahead.
All right. Let's
Okay. So I'll go. This is like this parallel. I'm learning about learning recently. This parallels really neatly onto like learning psychology, where different people learn different shit different ways. So Like the whole like I am a kinesthetic learner or I'm a visual learner or I'm a fucking whatever learner. Apparently, psychology has proven that that's bullshit. And in order for people to learn things, they have to have like a multivariant, multifaceted way of learning new things. So you're saying that like the panel scene is the worst way to learn shit. That might be true, but like the panel scene could be where you get an iota, a fragment of a fucking idea that you then follow up on with Wikipedia, and then maybe you have a debate in a Discord, and then you talk to somebody else.
Do you think anybody's mind was changed on
Hold the fuck up, because this is important. Like, if I don't convince any of y'all of any fucking arguments, but I give you a fraction of an idea, and then you Google it later, I'm basically, because of the metrics of panel fights, I am doing advertising for ideas that people are going to change their fucking minds on.
Mm-hmm.
So just because I don't fucking instantaneously, like everybody in the fucking audience is a radical centrist now, doesn't mean that we haven't fucking moved the ball or planted seeds. And I feel like this idea that like panels serve no fucking purpose, then why the fuck are you here? I know why I'm here. Because
I never said
I didn't say panels serve no purpose. Yet again, wow, all three of you fucking guys. I swear to fucking God, you take an argument and then you just say, "Nah, fuck that." Actually, let's make it as extreme as possible. You argue in the most dishonest way when you do that, and yeah, that's exactly why I think that these panels are not going to change anybody's fucking mind in terms of the fucking on one panel. Like, especially me, I'm not going to change your mind on anything that we're talking about right now. You know what I mean? Like, we have diametrically opposed positions.
Okay, Private First Class Jones. This is my fucking
nice way of engaging, but go for it.
You said that we were dumb for thinking that we fucking shifted anybody, and all I said was that we fucking learn many different ways. Which one of us do you think was more offensive with our fucking rhetoric? Because that was a fucking love tap.
Yeah, you've been doing this modern day thing.
Yeah, you're kind of you're implying that we're all fucking stupid for fucking being here and sharing our ideas because nobody fucking.
No, I'm implying that you're stupid for thinking that you're like shifting the Overton window or whatever you guys the auto tune window. I'm just buddy.
I'd rather hear from Alice.
In terms of de-radicalizing people, we're not the people to do it. Maybe Dooby says that he does it all the time in his server. I've never seen it. You know what I'm saying? Valence backs him up, so I believe him. All right. But that makes him good at it on a one-on-one setting in private, where you can talk to somebody over a prolonged period of time. Like, which is that's how like actual discourse happens in the real world. But I don't think that somebody who's like who's coming in here with a very far radicalized view is going to come out any different. And if they do, it's because one of us is basically a fucking an anomaly in the space. Like
so Mr. Jones, why do you come onto these panels?
Wait, Dooby, let me.
I like talking politics. I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind. What the fuck?
You're not.
Shit, I don't have an overinflated view of myself.
Okay,
you're not changing anybody's mind of anything.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna go to Wordy, then Alice, then Ty and Jason.
Okay. Captain, I love you to death, but you're being a dipshit here. Okay. So basically, there's this conflation here. We're not talking about extremist views. We're talking specifically about trans issues, right? This is a pretty commonly accepted thing within like the moderate level of being trans, and all that shit. We've said this before in this panel, and I feel like you're basically taking this talking point of extremist and basically like always making that argument. That's not what the argument we're making. And we're not making the argument that we're going to perfectly de-radicalize any people here. We're instead making the argument is this is not a monolith, but this is a significant way in some aspect of being a catalyst. That is the argument we've been making the whole time. And like, I understand you want to fight with Dooby. That it's really a dick move. Like, kind of like leave it to the side. I understand Dooby's an
Dooby's
asshole.
a frog. He doesn't have
my dick is much longer. Look up
he's a frog. He doesn't actually have a
Dooby, shut the fuck up. Okay, so the problem
just look up frog.
Dooby, shut the fuck up. Okay, so the problem comes is that we understand these limitations. Like, we understand this. But we understand is that people watch this shit a lot, right? There are millions upon millions of views done through these political situations and shit. We understand it will not perfectly do everything, but it is an important stepping stone through the process. So specifically is we're not going to change everything. But it is a catalyst. Like if you want to see, oh, a person's like watching a debate about philosophy, maybe they go look up meta ethics now, and they can develop more soundly their own framework of looking at the world. Like that's the thing, is it's a catalyst, not a one all be all. It is a stepping stone.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is, first, Dooby just admitted that he's looked up frog dicks, so that's pretty funny. And second, I again, I thought I was pretty clear. I talking about like super radicalized people. We're not going to be changing these people's minds. I guess like in terms of if you want to get the message out, that's cool, but like, you know, it also requires like you gotta fucking make sure that there's no transphobes in your chat, etc. if we're talking the specific issue.
The transphobes are the people you're trying to reach. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Are they the people?
Well, we gotta move on. We gotta move on. It's taking forever. Alice.
Oh man, I just wanted to kind of like this is all anecdotal, right? So this is not going to convince Captain Jones here, and that's fine. I've been on your panel, I don't know, maybe 10 times, Prime. I'm not even sure if it's been 10 times
anymore.
And I've had 2 different viewers of yours message me after panels and say, you know, I've actually like not considered things that way, and you actually made me question what I was thinking. I've had this experience myself. I can't show you the DMs because that's not really very nice. But I have 2 viewers who now come in and check in with me every so often. One person, I can't remember what the original argument was, but it wasn't trans-related, and the other one was trans-related. It was literally somebody who was like, you know, I really be uncomfortable with trans people, but I was watching your stream. I didn't even realize you were trans. And then you talked about this, and I was like, really started looking into it, and I really changed a lot of my views on this. So like, I hear what you're saying, like that you and Dooby, you know, pissing on each other is not going to convince people. I agree, it's not. But like normal conversations, even if they get kind of heated, they do convince people. They do make people think again, essentially. That's what happens. They think again. And it's not you guys. I don't expect to convince you guys. But I do expect that I'm going to be able to maybe bring up something interesting for Prime's viewers or my viewers, and maybe make them question what they're thinking. Because I actually do have confidence in my own abilities to be effective in a debate when it's not just a pissing contest. It's something that I do a lot. It's something that I like doing. So I do have faith in my ability to be convincing to my audience and to Prime's audience and to your audiences. It depends on the topic. I don't talk about shit. That's why you see me silent in here a lot of the time, because sometimes I just don't know about a topic and I won't talk about it. But when I know about a topic, I can convince people of it. And I feel like that's what we're kind of here for. We're here to make money, presumably, for a lot of you. Not for me, but for a lot of you. We're here to make money. We're here to entertain our audiences. But that does mean that we have a good positive side effect a lot of the time. Not every time, but a lot of the time.
Well, it sounds like you have a good positive side effect, which is good. That's amazing. And I'm really happy to hear that happened. And I don't disagree. Like, that's a great thing that you're doing that. Like, if I'm introducing viewers who, like, I usually don't really allow any kind of anti anything in my chat. I don't really talk about things like this because I play fucking video games and I smoke weed. Like, I'm not trying to convince people in my chat. But like, it's really awesome that you can do that. And I'm not sitting here saying that people who are in the middle can't be convinced one way or the other. I mean, we just saw Tyberius say he started off as a libertarian and now is a right-wing populist. Like, he went in the wrong direction, but he went in a direction, you know what I mean? And he was influenced by the people that he heard and that were around him. Okay. And like, so I think it's really good that you are having that positive influence.
Okay. Congratulations. So we'll go to Ty. Jason Counterpoints.
Appreciate the wrong direction there, Field Marshal Jones. But you know, all things considered,
thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
That's a significant fucking upgrade.
Anyway, no, hey, just as far as like what you said versus the balance of what you said, I piggybacked off of what you said and what your change was worry to make a point. That wasn't trying to like put words in your mouth. And if you feel that way, I'm sorry, dude, because I think you're a pretty cool dude. You're fine. Maybe you smoke a little too much weed, but I'm not trying to start a fight with you yet. So
now we're on fighting terms.
Okay, fair enough. Let's go. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to hit. Thank you very much.
Okay. Jason, and then counter and ready.
Okay, so there was a panel, not a Twitch panel, but a panel that changed my worldview. And you know, this will date me a little bit, but I remember when Bernie used to go on Bill Maher, and it was Bernie going on Bill Maher that swung me super into like democratic socialism and even exploring that idea. And that was a bunch of people yelling at each other. It was literally like a bunch of people yelling at each other and making jokes. We do the same thing here. If my mind could be changed, living in a red state where I came from a Republican family, where if more than anything I was probably lean libertarian, if anything at all, to be changed that drastically, yes, panels can change people. Panel can change people's minds. I've done it myself in the short time I've been here. There's somebody that I had on that was coming through my chats that was an old friend of mine that was totally anti-masker, wouldn't wear a mask at all, didn't want to get vaccinated, didn't want to do any of it. And through our constant panel fights and things I do in my stream, she's at least now wearing a mask. She has at least gotten that far. Now she still won't get vaxxed, but hey, I'll take the small wins. But yes, you can change people's minds in these spaces. Are you going to change everybody's mind all at once? No, but it's like you throw a pebble in a pond and watch the ripples happen. I mean, you change somebody else's mind, then they change somebody else's mind, then that person changes two people's minds, and that's how it happens. It's a message, and as that message ripples, more people are going to get it, and more people are going to catch on. But being a voice here, every time that you put something out, you never know whose mind you're changing. You may not hear about it. They might make up their mind on their own outside of this. So is it important to get your message out on these platforms and on these panels and do this? Yeah, very much so, if you care about your position.
So we might be having what we might call like a bias in our data, because we're not actually taking into account the other side. How many people are we pushing away? Possibly we may just not be hearing about the people that we're pushing away with either our terrible fucking arguments, or simply because we're just not the right person to reach them.
That's why I'm
and
here.
so it's pretty easy to say that we've changed people, but again, I think that you're going to hear about that, whereas you probably are not going to hear about the person who's like, oh my god, fuck this fucking socialist fucking idiot. I'm now even more right wing than I was before, and now I'm going to listen to fucking Counterpoints.
That's what happens in the marketplace of ideas, though. That's what happens in the marketplace of ideas, Captain.
Yes, you just agreed with our point that people's minds do change based on these panels.
No, can I?
Go ahead. Counterpoints.
Oh man, like the past 5 minutes have just been revealing all of my ulterior motives. It's been fucking beautiful. So Alice is like, hey, I got people fucking DMing me, left, right, and center about hey, I was thinking about this, that, the other. Dude, I get that shit all the time. And by the way, it's not like, hey, I'm a radical centrist now. Oh, hey, I think Jordan Peterson is the most base dude in the fucking world. What I fucking get is hey, listen, I'm super fucking far left. I'm still an ANCOM. I'm still a progressive. I'm still, whatever. But you gave me arguments that I hadn't considered before. And as a result, I'm starting to slow my roll and have better conversations. And this is one of the things that's really frustrating for me, is because in the power abhors a vacuum, right? And I'm going to be a little critical here of some of the heavyweights in our area. But people, I would say Destiny debates to debate. He has his principles, but he just loves the fucking fight. Vosh loves to debate, but he's a socialist ideologue. He's trying to advocate for socialism in his realm. What is it? Hassan Piker, he's aesthetically a socialist, and he's a beautiful man. So he's probably dragged some people over to those things. But the problem that I often see, and I'm not even talking necessarily about these creators, is they take a bunch of very young, very impressionable, very upset, and very desperate people, and they say, I have a political solution to all your fucking problems, and all you have to do is take your emotional and mental energy and invest it in me and give me a $5 donor in your political avatar.
CIA, man. CIA.
I
Yeah,
I don't
Connor, if
want
you,
to.
if you spend less money in your briberies, more money in the internet connection, we wouldn't be having this
The
problem.
left is canceled him right now,
He's
man.
getting his
Shit.
computer replaced. Give him a break.
It's
Nah,
just
fuck
restarting.
It's not.
I-
Those damn leftists
Yeah, it's about the
deplatforming him right now.
Nah, fuck Connor.
So
Shit.
wait, I don't want to make a point. I just want to say
Dear
Connor
Twitch, Counterpoints.
Connor has actually changed some of my views as well. Like Connor has brought me more towards the center. So like I'm just saying he's not lying. Like
Oh my God.
Oh, no.
I really want to get
Yeah,
on this.
got
Yeah.
another one.
Mm.
Yo,
Oh,
but
good
can I?
no.
But just to finish, can y'all hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
So I'll stop ranting because the fucking CIA hates it when I rant. So the point is that like to get a bunch of like young desperate people to have a little bit of a more sober take on reality and how they can take on their own problems in an incremental way while still having like higher level ideals and principles to the point that they're not like, oh, global warming is going to kill us all, so I might as well not have kids. That's an important choice. And that's some of the propagandists in our space are literally fucking saying that shit. They're literally saying like, fuck it, don't have kids. Everybody's gonna be fucking dead by 2050 anyways.
Do you think
And
there's
people take
actually
that shit to
people who
heart.
are like seriously wanting to have kids who are like, oh
Like,
well,
yeah.
now I'm not gonna
Yeah.
actually. I got
Counterpoints
convinced.
told me not to
Yeah.
fuck, so now I won't.
Counterpoints
Yeah,
told me not to,
I'm-
so I guess I'm not gonna have a kid now. I guess.
No, not me. But I'm saying like the political, yes, absolutely. The political landscape is telling people not to have kids. And a lot of people are opting out of having children because they have no hope about the future, whether it's economic, climate based or
Fuck, I thought it was just
social or
that I
political.
didn't want to have kids, and then all
Yeah.
that stuff was just
No,
convenient.
You're a
that it
special.
Connor, to be
Connor-
Connor,
fit into my
Connor-
fucking. It already fit into my plan.
well, to
I
be
don't
fair,
know.
most
You're
of you guys
special
shouldn't be having kids.
It
let's be
just
honest.
seems like massive
Dooby,
speculation
do not
is
say
what
you
I'm
shouldn't be
trying to
having
point
kids.
out.
Look in the mirror.
All right, I
I've
want to get on
raised
this real quick.
millions of kids. Okay, look at
Okay.
I want to
It's-
piggyback off of
Yeah.
Jones and Counterpoints when they were talking about
right
changing
here.
minds. What?
Was it?
Right here.
Just let me go off for a second here. I want to talk. about
Alrighty,
this.
I'll let
All
you
right,
go.
Thanks. Jones actually hit the nail on the head for me very, very well, and that is leftists have done a very, very good job of pushing me right. And y'all might want to look at how that works.
See? How
I
many
gotta-
times? Oh, we're like, we're killing this dude in this debate, and Tiberius is over there going,
No, you're
"Oh
not.
my God, fuck that! All right, fuck."
Yeah, but Captain
mandate-
Jones, it's you.
All right, no, fuck
It's
public
you.
schools. Fuck
Right.
that.
So-
We don't need to fund them at all.
Oh, like, I'm not.
Some
I'm
of
not-
these
I'm not
people are
saying-
already leaning into the direction they're going to go, and you saying what you have to say, it may make a little bit of influence, but they've already decided that they're going to go that direction. So Tiberius, I'm sorry, I think that's kind of a bad argument because it seems like you've already been that way, and I don't see you
But-
going socialist anytime soon, man.
You're right,
I'm not
it's
saying-
Captain A.
look,
Jones's
look,
fault.
Wait. Okay, so you're never gonna get me to go socialist, sure, right? But you can definitely. I love liberals. You can definitely get me on board with liberalism if you let me engage with those folks. But when I hear a bunch of leftist shit, yeah, I'm just like screaming hard to the right when I hear a lot of this shit. Now, part of that is just being a reactionary, and you can shame me for that one. But also, when I do this, engage in this discourse, let's be honest here. There's some people that advocate for leftism that is very fucking bad at it. All right. The other thing I wanted to hit just real quick is very simple. Is that I think the two things that really you need to convince people, if you actually are, when you touch them, is one, empathy. You have to let them understand what it is you're advocating for and why. The other part is that it has to ring somewhat true. Is that when you say, hey, look, dude, I'm struggling here. This thing's going on in my life. Don't you have something like this too? When they're like, oh yeah, when it fundamentally hits them as like a truth of the universe, no matter if you advocate for like right-wing shit, left-wing shit, if they can't ignore it, then they have to put that into the greater whole of what they understand. It's hard to do, but 100% that's how you do it.
Okay,
Right,
Woody.
if I could hop off and use two analogies, okay, Captain? You play Project Zomboid too much, okay?
I'm playing Project Zomboid right now.
Exactly, you play it a lot. So realizing you play it a lot, I'm like, I watch a shit, and I'm like, oh, that's interesting, and then I buy it myself, and now I'm fucking addicted, right? That is the same argument you use for like the catalyst, right? We have influence regardless if we're aware of it or not. So basically, the whole argument here is whether we should conscientiously understand we're having influence and kind of be able to drive people towards ideas that we may find more preferable. And so, like, that's the whole aspect, right? Is influence happens regardless if you think of it or not. Two is like I can talk about specifically my experience of being driven like even crazier. It's like talking to Connor and he's like, "Yo, people are fucked," and I'm like, "Okay, you're right because society is fucked. Okay, society is a fucked institution. Like you basically either drive me to like being an amprim or becoming like a fucking post-structuralist, and I hate it here." And basically is like influence and effects happen regardless if we think about it or not, and there can be adverse effects, but fundamentally is these things will exist of like influence and people being affected by different opinions. This is just kind of how society functions, and when we understand how that functions is either we basically say fuck it, we're going to be nihilists, or we try to be some positive change in the world, and those do have adverse effects, but ultimately intention to driving towards it. And you may say you may have negative results here, right, but you may have positive results here, and the goal should always be to increase your positives over your negatives. And that as much as I hate fucking society right now, that is just the reality.
Okay.
So,
I guess that was it. Yeah, go ahead. Oh,
yeah,
Dooby.
yeah.
And then
just
Dooby, and then Dooby wants his hand up.
yeah. So, like, I definitely, I want to be careful with my words here, because, like, I don't think that panels in the long run are not converting people's minds. I just said I don't know who they're converting and what our conversion rates actually are. We could very well be, I'm a leftist, I guess. Like I guess, yeah, I'm a pretty big progressive leftist. I would like to push people towards us, but I have no fucking idea if that's actually happening. I don't have any fucking data to back that point up if I wanted to. And like I had said at the beginning, like I think that if you're able to convince people like that, you're special. You're special, and you should use that specialness that you have for good. To promote progressive lefty things.
I would consider myself
I'm
special.
I'm dragging everybody towards me except for Dooby and Prime because they're special. Because Prime doesn't give a fuck what I say. He's like, fuck that shit. You can fuck right off that. And then fucking Dooby is like, he's in his own fucking esoterica of like stuff. Like, I swear
He's
to
in
God,
hell. He's in hell. Look.
No, but like it's a very literate hell. Like there's like demonic scripts of like ancient texts that he like flips through, and he's like, yeah, what Connor said is fucking bullshit. Because I found some 500 pre-Christ shit written in fucking Aramaic that like completely.
I don't know what. Are you talking about
Sego
4chan? I'm not, or
Mary.
8chan. I'm just not sure exactly which chan these
no, it's
scripts
not
and
8chan.
ancient scriptures are coming from. I just don't know.
I think Captain Jones has turned into General Jones, and he's going for some frog legs for dinner.
I'm looking. I'm talking. I'm gonna cook these motherfuckers up so good. Salt and pepper is all you need too. Just fucking delicious.
It's a Minecraft server with a library in there, and then the books are written in fucking Aramaic. That's how far you got to rabbit hole.
Okay, Dooby.
So two things. Connor, first off, the reality is my brain is just bigger than yours. I don't know how to say this.
I don't know that.
Mr. Jones, I think you've got an inferiority complex. It doesn't take a special person to convince another person another thing, right? I've been convinced of things by very stupid people. You've convinced me of a couple of things, and I'm not going to tell you
what. Seriously, what?
You've convinced me that not all potheads are bad people. They're not all degenerates that need to be in jail. Now I support the legalization of all drugs. This is how far you've taken me. That being said, personally, I think that this discussion is kind of overdone. We've had this specific discussion a million times. What I'm wondering about, and getting back to the original topic, is do you think that this question, right, is transgenderism a mental illness? Not just this topic, but other similar topics that could be considered offensive, could be hurtful to some people, to even have the discussion, right, to entertain this as a possibility. Do you think that these things have a place on this platform? Not whether or not it's in the TOS, whether you personally think that this is something that should be discussed.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. I think that there's a right way to be able to discuss issues like this, and yeah, I think this is a pretty clear TOS violation, so it's kind of pointless to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I do think that we have to debate people in the marketplace of ideas, and on this platform, that is a Twitch panel. And yeah, that's why I come here, to debate people. Maybe I'm just okay. You said I had an inferiority complex. Maybe I just don't feel I don't know. Maybe I just haven't.
You'd be
I
more
haven't done
effective
that
if you
yet.
get less weed. Okay?
I haven't
Say
done that
Maybe-
yet, and so like I just don't have any data so far. You know what I'm saying? Like
That's fine.
my
Cap, you're changing minds. Yeah,
Am
I
I?
think what you have is an
Am I?
imposter syndrome. It's imposter syndrome, not
Okay,
inferiority
that's-
complex.
That's fair. I definitely do have imposter
Yeah,
syndrome
can
in a lot of situations.
Yeah, so really quickly, like, all right, don't trust Dooby when he says that like you should do.
I don't
like,
trust
more,
Dooby.
Yeah,
I
like
just
you should
period
do more
end of
drugs.
story right there.
He's just hoping that the drugs are fucking cut with something, and you develop like early onset dementia
come
or some
on.
shit.
Bastard. That's his
Yeah, I know.
fucking.
It's like
Wow.
it's a
Thank
fucking
you, Counter, for
ruse.
fucking telling me this shit.
Yeah, it's a fucking ruse. Don't trust that shit. But what I was gonna say is like actually what's funny is like, I had a conversation.
Fucking CIA.
See what happens
Y'all
when you
bring me
fuck with me? You
Every
see this?
single time.
Remember this. Remember this next time, okay?
Okay, Connor, can you keep going?
Alice, go ahead.
All I wanted to do is I just wanted to kind of say that yes, I think this topic should be talked about. I'm not sure that it should be talked about by breaking toss in your titles, but I think that it's important to talk about this topic. And I'm gonna simp for Calliopean Club. We allow this topic on Calliopean Club. So please, if you have this question, go to Calliopean Club, talk about it with us. The way of platforming is important. So Lauren Southern might not be the best person to have this discussion. Lauren Southern is a white supremacist who's been pretty consistently messaging in a way that's not really very effective. She's kind of just kind of going for controversy or something of that nature. I don't know if I watched that whole video and she's not really very effective. It's not like she's really arguing for the mental illness side of things. She just wants to say trans people bad, basically. So you can have that type of discussion in a way that doesn't just equate to trans people bad. And that discussion is important to have, to talk about the things in gender dysphoria that do act like a mental illness and things that do not act like a mental illness. Most mental illnesses, like depression, you can't stop. Depression doesn't just go away. You can't treat it and magically finger snap it away, whereas dysphoria actually gets significantly better or goes away with transition. So that's one of the things that's different. This is a discussion that's important to have because a lot of people aren't aware of that. A lot of people think that trans people are just, out here slitting our wrists all day, but that's not what it's like to be a trans person. We absolutely can end up with very, very, very good outcomes. It doesn't, and so can people with depression, and so can people with bipolar disorders. These things don't hurt you, in the sense that you're not just suddenly fucked up for life because you have these things. But the reason that, gender dysphoria is not as simple as just saying, oh, it's just like depression, is that it's not actually like depression. It's not a lifelong thing that you end up dealing with. And then people are going to go back and forth about this because the topic is interesting. I think that's fine. I think that's important. I think that type of platforming of an actual discussion about this is absolutely fine. It's when, people need to, go out there and say, trans people are just mentally ill and we should just put them into institutions. That's when it's not responsible. That's the irresponsible side of it. There's not really any reason to platform that.
Before Dooby interrupts my internet again. Basically what I was going to say is like, yeah, that pretty much what Alice just said is the main problem. And these are the least effective debates, is when people are talking points machines. They don't address anything that was said by the opposite party. They don't factor it into their worldview at all. They just like assume that it's bullshit. You do the fucking debunking study bullshit back and forth like fucking a million times. And then also on top of that, like, you basically like, you just reiterate what your audience wants to hear. And that's all you do. Those are the least effective debates. And if there was a way to differentiate these things before they happened, I would literally like ban that fucking form of debate because it does nothing. It does absolutely fucking nothing. It just reinforces people's preconceived worldviews. It gives them an avatar and a champion for their fucking ideas. But if nobody's willing to consume the opposite side's information and integrate it into their worldview, it fucking sucks. It's a shitty conversation.
Yeah, if I can hop in off of that.
And after that, Ty.
Okay, so basically, yeah, like there's the whole problem with like in terms of dialogue trees and talking points, but I do want to kind of like adjust the conversation a little bit here, Connor. Is I think you're trying to do your best, right? I believe you have the best of good intentions. I believe you have a good fucking heart, no matter how fucking shot it is through bullet holes. Basically, is I understand that my concern is, in terms of your interactions with Lauren Southern sometimes, is whether, like, when you have a very personal relationship with someone and you're trying to affect them, and I don't think you should drop that. I think you should continue to try and influence her to the best you can. But the problem comes is, like, in like watching you and her debate together and all that shit, sometimes it feels like you're as like a vehicle of kind of like cloaking her a little bit sometimes. And basically is you kind of like do a little bit of like PR ad campaign for her. And I understand like she you know, like she's going to be very having to deal with a lot of hostility, but frustrating sometimes is when I see her argue and see her debate, she is pretty consistently an effective list of talking points with rhetoric flourish in it. That's like how I see her. So my concern is, right, when you like kind of like a protector sometimes and all that stuff, is you kind of like make her seem more reasonable sometimes than she is. And so that's my concern, if I just want to say like the biggest issue that I have potentially.
Sure. And just to address that directly, it's like I'm doing the best with what I got, basically. And also on top of that, like just talking to her or whatever, this is where I can see, like, obviously she, in these spaces, she's a particularly like nefarious character or whatever. But one of the things that she's expressed to me, and I think expressed to other people, is everyone's trying to fix her. Like, it's a joke, right? Like, I can fix her because she's an attractive gal. And also, like, rhetorically, they're like, oh, her perspectives are dog shit, so we're gonna gravitationally, like, slowly but surely drag her over. And I think there could be like a certain like psychological resistance to that, where you're publicly saying like, oh, I'm gonna shift somebody, you know what I'm saying? And so that's where, like, I understand, like, associations, like that's really difficult. What's funny is I'm actually from the other side, because we had I told Lauren before the Fanatic and Rose Wrist debate, listen, we can go ahead with this debate, but I'm not going to back you. Dude, stop talking about the internet. Are you fucking kidding me?
Almost.
Try again.
Try again, yeah.
Is Dooby fucking-
Nope, never mind.
Nah, get fucked.
Remember that last sentence, buddy? Remember that last sentence? And then we'll want to hear from you. Okay, so let's go to Ty.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of not Connor's last point, but the point before that about the talking points. That's really common on here, and I'm not going to call out names for people to do it, but I think it's incredibly ineffective. I want to talk about, people bring out studies. Studies have a place. I think they will change minds, but in a general sense is that big issue. People threw studies at me like, hey, public housing is actually saving people or, localities money. And I'm like, there's just no way. People are going to be resistant to these things unless they can intuition. Can't we use this? Use your intuition. Yeah, intuitive. A lot of people are intuitive thinkers. I am one of. And people are going to have like some kind of like intuitive grounding into how this could possibly be the case before they're going to be open to that information. When people told me public housing saved money, I was like, there's no fucking way you're spending money on people getting houses. But if you like explain that in a particular way, which is explained to me as an example, hey, look, dude, you have these people who aren't going to jail. You have these people that have a place to live where they're not constantly like seeking rent or, having issues with getting to work. They have a place. That will fundamentally save money on the back end because you're saving on law enforcement. You're saving on property or protections, property insurance, that have you. Localities are actually saving money when it comes to that kind of thing. It's impressive. It's amazing. But if you had told me that 6 months ago, I would have told you were full of shit. So anyway, yes, you have to ground this into a particular level in a particular way where people are like, you know what, that makes sense. And that is a great example of the discourse online that has changed me. So thank you.
Okay. Connor, do you remember that? Your final point?
Yeah, if Dooby can stop fucking with my internet for a second, and everybody just like stay still. Don't freak out my computer, okay? So what I was gonna say was that what I was gonna say is that, like, I told her right before that debate, it's like, I'm never gonna say anything that I don't believe with. So if you're gonna lead with these arguments, then you're kind of on your own. You have to be able to defend. And unfortunately, like, that's kind of where she ended up defending for like 90 minutes of the debate. this is actually really cute since all the hands are up. So I'm going to hold up a finger gun so somebody can screenshot this. So the fucking there we go. Perfect.
Black man.
Yeah. Yes. Canceled finally. So, the point being, it's like, what you're going to hear from me is what I'm thinking. And that, like, I try to be really consistent on that. Like you're not hearing some fucking 3D fucking chess move, like what, all that kind of bullshit. You're hearing what I'm thinking. And what I'm thinking is that I've said this before, I'll say it again. Lauren is representative of 55% of the Republican Party. I want them to be like me. I want them to be moderate or not give a fuck about LGBTQ issues because I want LGBTQ people to do well. I want them to care about people from different ethnic backgrounds in the United States of America because I think we're fellow citizens and I believe in civic nationalism. Whatever my version of the right is, I do want to drag them my way, but I am not in power. I am not representative of the right. Roughly 60% of the party looks more like Lauren than it does me. So that's where I just have to be sober, or like I have to be real about what I can accomplish and how many people I can sway.
When the party looks more like a Canadian than American.
Sure. And like I still want guns, but yeah, like Ty was saying, there's some concepts that are intuitively not conservative, but actually are. Fiscal conservatives, like if they realize that they could save money through public housing and they can employ more people and they could have a better economy, if you care about those things, then while it might be a left policy, it can fulfill a conservative goal. And then that's a fucking thing is like a lot of conservative, like the problem that I think that Ty and I have like frustrations with the conservatives on is tell us what the goals are and we sincerely agree with them, but then we start looking at how to get there, and how they want to get there is cut taxes for the rich, spend the money on war, and that's it. And that's all the policy prescriptions you see out of the real Republican Party. And that's frustrating as fuck because I believe in the ideals and the ideology and the goals, but I think the policy is bullshit. And I'm really frustrated with that because the stated goals of the Republican Party and their actual policy are not the same thing.
Damn it.
That lasted a long time, actually.
True, it did.
To be fair, that's
can I
probably the
piggyback
longest
that?
I've ever heard him talk.
Can I piggyback that just
Go
a little bit? Yeah, so like, okay, I've gotten older. I used to be a leftist 5 years ago. I'm not now. Part of that is changing and aging. Part of that is not. I'm going to table that. I grew up with a Republican Party that was the party of Wall Street and the party of like Christian conservatives. Parts of that party I didn't like younger, but now as I've gotten older, I identify with it more. I like the party of the people that said, no, we're going to run the FBI. We're going to be police officers. We're going to look after our community. Our institutions are fucking important. People need to run them. They need to be run well. I miss that part of the Republican Party. What I don't fucking miss about the old Republican Party was that it sucked Wall Street's dick constantly. And every time the people who used to run the party and were the people that I would really respect had to go to the election polls, they always had to suck Wall Street's ass because they had the fucking money. One of the big things that I loved about Trump and MAGA, God, I hate to say this, is that they were incredibly anti-corporate. Is that they said, you know what? Corporate America is fucking us. They shipped our jobs away. They're woke as fuck. Screw these people. I loved that about MAGA, and I absolutely identified with it very, very strongly. Now, that's an entire issue to itself, but what I'm getting at is that I would love to be a Republican, but then you get Trump, and Trump is literally the most fucking toxic, immoral piece of shit I've seen in a long-ass time. And I'm like, how do I vote for these people? I can't. Problem is, I feel the same way about Democrats, just in a completely different direction. So anyway, that's my rant over. I appreciate you hearing my TED Talk.
Yeah, so I guess to respond to that, like, I don't think the right wing ever stopped, as you put it, sucking Wall Street's dick. I think that they elected Trump, and Trump is like, isn't he like a corporate? Isn't Trump just a corporation? Like, isn't it Trump LLC? No, probably not an LLC. Shows my limited knowledge on corporations. Anyway, so yeah, I just think like that panels are good at shifting people. Like, okay, look, I loved me some Christopher Hitchens back in the day. Oh my goodness, Christopher Hitchens was my hero for a long time, because it was like him, along with just personal shit that happened, that really like allowed me to get out of my radical phase in my life, where I believed pretty ridiculous shit. And so yeah, there's a lot of people, and that was like a panel. Yeah, I guess you could say, like the back in the day panel in real life. Something maybe post COVID we won't really know much about, but like, this. So I don't want to say that we can't have an effect over time. I think like one of the big effects that we can have is simply by introducing people to people that they haven't types of people that they haven't been introduced to before. Like, how many times have we heard, oh, the white guy in Kentucky, he literally just, there's no black people around him, he doesn't know anybody of color, it's like literally just all white around him, he's never been introduced to somebody else. Like, yeah, we can introduce people. And ultimately my point was not to say that that panels or that having discussions about things can't change people's minds. I just think, like, for instance, I'm just going to use this as the latest example. I don't think that the debate over what was it, school mandates, that Sherry and Hans, and then boom, blew up into a big thing. I don't think that changed anybody's minds on the actual debate. And people weren't there for the mandate stuff. They were there for the fucking blood. They were there for the entertainment. You know what I mean? So I just want to keep that in mind while we're like thinking and talking about this kind of stuff.
Ready?
Okay, so the whole blood sports, the battle, school mandates, okay. Basically, like Connor said, it's 80% flourish and 20% actual nugget of information, okay? And, like, responding off that, I sent a message to Jack. I'm going to start reviewing some of the sources she was trying to, like, cite. She was just really bad at arguing them, and Hans obviously was out for blood, right? We can understand how that's shit, and there's a real conversation that has to be had there, but looking at Connor and Tiberius here, so the frustration for me is, like, it's just where you've kind of, like, dead-pilled me on this a little bit, is, like, humans aren't inherently assholes to my perspective. I think they're tabula rasa. They are blank slates. And the problem comes is, as society exists, it drives them. People have drives, right? They want to live, all that shit. The society, as it structures itself, it centralizes itself naturally because it wants, like, naturally, as like hierarchy exists, it wants to do this. And so the problem comes is when you place this expectation of, like, where you want people to, like, be responsible, be capable, and be, like, smart about it. The problem comes is, as long as centralized systems exist, this is the end result. Get bad people, bad money, whatever reason, they can get into power here. So, like, that's the whole frustration I have with that argument, is because you think, like, you give this idealized hope of, like, where people will naturally come to power and be good, like, advocates and all that shit. If anything, to demonstrate through, like, our entire history of America, that's wrong. So, like, the frustration that becomes is, like, influencing and just how society exists. People are influenced regardless if they think about it or not. People take on perspectives regardless if they're internalizing it. And naturally, as society exists, it will platform these people. And we have to basically understand, as, like, common citizenry is, like, we have to fight that shit all day long. And that's, like, you could say that's the whole balance between power and citizenry. But I think that naturally, as society exists, there will be people in power who will want to shut shit down. So yeah.
Okay. I think we've, like, run this one to ground. So, Ray, we've done it. We solved it.
We did. The horse is a dead pulp now. We did it. We fucking beat it to death, y'all.
Okay.
Welcome to the communist society.
We've changed people's minds.
We did.
Yeah,
succeeded.
Yeah. We've now
Welcome
got
to consensus.
Everyone here's now fucking, like, Ancom or something.
We did it, Patrick. We saved the city.
Fuck.
You know what? I believe what I said at the beginning of this more
we're
than
never
ever.
gonna have this debate about how to change people's minds ever again.
Ever.
This topic will never show up again.
Oh boy. All right. So
welcome to the meta topics.
All right. Hooray. So we're gonna go on to our next topic. Before we do that, hey, if you've stumbled on this channel, if you liked what you've been hearing, right, and this has actually been a lot calmer than most of our conversations here, then hit that follow button right now and make sure notifications are on so you know I'm going live. So I do 6 nights a week. Don't want you to miss out on all the content. Exclamation point social and chat to follow us on social media. Follow us on Twitter for channel updates. Jump into the Discord where you'll have all our conversations. Like that's offline, online. We're having so many conversations right until the community wants you to be a part of that. So join the Discord, and the YouTube is where you'll find the VODs of everything. So subscribe, like, and comment. All right, thank you so much. Let's move on to our next topic. And thank you, Counterpoints, again for the last one. Much appreciated. Topic 2. In Ohio, a mayor has called for the school board to resign after parents complained about a book given to high school students. The book featured a number of writing prompts that some considered to be inappropriate. One prompt asked students to, quote unquote, write a sex scene you wouldn't show your mom, and another which said, rewrite that same sex scene from above into one that you'd let your mom read. Yet another prompt asked students to drink a beer and describe how it tastes. The backlash has been harsh. One person suggested installing cameras in classrooms so that parents can monitor what their kids are being taught. Another claimed that the textbook amounted to child pornography. Do you think that the backlash is at all warranted? If your child had received this textbook, what would your reaction be? Are parents poorly equipped to assess these sorts of situations? And we got this from our gift from Mad Latin. Thank you, Mad Latin, for the kindness for sending me that article. But yeah, so this is a weird one. Yeah, so big backlash in this one particular town against this, like, it was called, what was it, 642 something, 642 like writing prompts or something, I forget. But anyway, it was used, I believe, in a high school class that was for like a college level, you know, like college credit class. They teamed up with a certain local college to put on this course, and they were given this, and it was just like more supplemental material anyway, but they had these prompts, and people have taken to it very harshly. This isn't the first time you have these like moral panics over these types of things. This has happened quite a few times. So I want to know, like, are these not only just this particular one, right? This particular backlash, but these types of reactions, are they warranted when like something risque happens to high school students, or should we chill the fuck out? Your thoughts? All right. So we're gonna go with introductions. We'll start with the illustrious Alice.
Thank you. So I will say that I don't have a lot of information about other scandals like this. I think in general, you know, people in high school, they are early teenagers to, like, you know, teenagers, normal teenagers, whatever the difference is there. And they're not really necessarily, with a teacher at least, shouldn't really be being presented certain types of material. Do I think that they shouldn't be covering topics like sex? No, I think covering sex is fine. I think a novel that discusses sex in any sort of manner is probably fine. Pornographically, no. But in a matter-of-fact way, in the reality that they are going to, as adults in a few years, going to face, fine, not a problem. This book, on the other hand, 642 Things to Write About is the name of this book. So first off, there's another book, 642 Things to Write About, Young Writers Edition, which has exactly the same prompts, minus the sexual ones. Second off, some of the other prompts from this exact book are, describe a time when you wanted to orgasm but couldn't. Write 10 euphemisms for sex. You are a brand new suicide hotline counselor. Describe how you feel during your first call. Let's see here. What else? There's some other pretty good ones. Sermon for a beloved preacher who's been caught in a sex scandal. So these topics are just not really appropriate for a high school class. They're not an educational set of topics. These are just, you know, raunchy topics that adults would enjoy writing to get the creative juices flowing. And I think that's fine. But the thing about this was that there's an easy alternative. I think, you know, I think that Americans especially are really, really prone to, you know, moral panics. I think in this case, yeah, this was just a shit move. But I don't know if anyone else read the whole article and read all the stuff about it. But the mayor of that town is calling for the 5 school board members to step down over this. which is just insane. Yes, you made a mistake. We fucked up. You probably shouldn't have put that book in front of kids. But to tell the school board to step down over this, that's insane. Nobody deserves to get fired over this. Nobody deserves to be told to step down. The thing that you need to do is just say, oh, sorry, we fucked up. Let's move on. We'll take that book back. We'll give them the other one that doesn't have all the stuff about masturbation, and we can keep going. You don't need to make this like giant fuss of it. That's my main problem with this. Like the book itself was insane, but the moral panic over it is equally insane. So.
You.
Pro streaming, yeah. Pro streamer.
It's not
I'm
bad.
just trying to be respectful so you guys don't have to hear me burp and fart, okay?
I want it.
But I don't know if my kid was a senior in high school taking a college level class and she came home with this. I would be upset that she was given this content solely because it's telling her to do things that are quite frankly illegal, i.e., drinking a beer at 18, at least in my state. That troubles me. It does trouble me the aggressive bent towards sexual content. I think that in a college setting, that might be perfectly fine. I think that in a high school setting, well, you start to get to a place where kids can accept and learn things that maybe we would call more graphic. I think they took it way too far. And honestly, if the superintendent and the school board didn't know what was in this curriculum, they're grossly negligent. They're grossly negligent in dealing with this shit. Because my understanding is most of this shit comes down from the school board. It's not like just an individual teacher says, okay, we're going to distribute this book. I could be wrong. Different school boards are different. I don't think that the idea of criminalizing the school board is acceptable in any ways. I think that's absolutely ridiculous that the mayor said, well, we're going to, you can either step down or we're going to charge you. I think that's ridiculous. I think it's a horrible oversight. It's a gross oversight. But quite honestly, I think termination or stepping down, that may be a solution, but certainly not criminalizing it. And I think that the parents wanting to put cameras in the classrooms and shit like that, it's a bridge too far. They've taken it too far. They're taking reactionary measures, and I bet a lot of these parents just pretty much hate the public education system as it is anyways. So, I take that part with a grain of salt. I think they need to cool their heels a little bit, maybe look at it with some context. But yeah, did they do something wrong in distributing this book? Should there be consequences? Yeah, absolutely. Should it be firing or getting charged with a crime? Hell no.
Counterpoints.
I agree with 90% of what Alice said, but my determination would be based off of whether or not it's intentional and who was in charge of that decision. So, for instance, if it was an individual teacher based on no problem with it, then I would want that teacher to be fired.
That's really fucked up, Dooby. It's really fucked up.
Oh well. All right.
Every fucking time.
We got. I think we pretty much got what you said. So, but
stop fucking with me, Dooby.
Okay. Let's go to Wordy. Like, this is what happens when you cross him. Now you'll know. Wordy.
Yeah. Okay. So it's really easy. The book was stupid. That was a fuck up. And I think more than anything here, it's probably not intentional. Oversight shit happens all the fucking time. And a lot of people like to associate this with like an intention thing where people just fuck up because they weren't necessarily like, I don't expect like school board members to like know what shit they're necessarily producing. They'd be like, this looks fine, whatever. And like, that's usually the intentions I expect to be happening. And that's really frustrating to deal with, is like they, to some extent, they just don't care, or they're either passive about what happens or what's consumed or what information is happening. So basically is I can understand wanting to be like parents, like, yo, this is weird and fucked. But like the whole moral panic, and this is just like a common thing that seems to be happening more and more now, is like talking about the whole like anti-CRT dipshits. We talk about like the we talk about like all the people like who are harassing like board members for like talking like, hey, we need to have mask mandates in the school and like those kind of people, and like this whole moral panic about this right now. And I think fundamentally is while I can understand the frustration where parents come from, I think the reaction here is just it's not acceptable. Like it's really fucking extreme. And that mayor, like I read that shit too, and it's like, dude, like holy shit, like haven't you done an investigation? You're literally just like doing this whole reactionary bullshit for no reason. And that's just my opinion. Is like, yo, you should probably make sure this doesn't happen again in the future. Just like review the information at least a little bit, so this isn't like just read through it. But like at the same time, like people are going overboard about this. Like shit happens, things get fucked. As long as people aren't intentionally fucking things or whatever, then it's fine.
Dooby.
So I mostly agree with what Alice said about this kind of being like this moral panic thing. I think that that being said, I don't know if I give a fuck, to be honest with you. This isn't a college credit class, right? These are high school seniors, right? So like if they're talking about drinking and masturbation and sex in a high school credit class or whatever, I'm sorry, a college credit class, like what do we really give a fuck? Is it really that big a deal? I don't know. No, I agree. Maybe they could have avoided all of this by just getting the book that's produced for young people. That would have solved all these problems, but they didn't. Whoop-de-doo. Big fucking deal. I just don't care that much. I think that calling this, characterizing this as child pornography, that these people are distributing child pornography in the classrooms is totally batshit insane. Wanting anybody fired for this, totally batshit insane. Worst case scenario, cut out the pages with the naughty words and move the fuck on. It's really not that big a deal.
Okay. Smug. Bug.
Yeah, so the mayor is a dumbass from this claim. He has no legal claim to it. The local prosecutor and local civil unions are already fucking like going at his ass for just otherwise being perceivingly straight up threatening these teachers with litigation when he has no claim. So when we look at this, so this book is an extension, like so as we know, the college class, the high school, it was a accelerated course. It was high schoolers who take a college course get credits beforehand, right? And so this book is the same book that they used in that local private college, Hiram College, and so it's important to note though, like within this, like because even the article characterizes this as, oh, these children are having to fucking write about sex and shit. These children are being forced by the curriculum to fucking write these in-depth fanfics. Well, no, that's actually not true. From what I've been seeing here from multiple sources, that at least, well, first off, most of them don't even elaborate on like the aspects of the book that they're pulling out of. But the ones I have seen are ones that effectively say within this class, they're only taking out about approximately, the source I have here says about 6% of the prompts in the book, and none of them are relating to like death, murder, sex, or substance abuse, or like dark humor or otherwise completely arbitrary mundane shit. Like those particular ones, like the ones in question, weren't the ones that are being used. And so that's very telling that this is effectively just like basically like a helicopter parent basically saying, hey, give me your stuff. I'm going to skim through it. I'm going to look through all this. And they saw it and assumed, oh, well, they must be teaching my kid this. To Alice's point, like the school district, yeah, they could have been smarter and used the more age appropriate book, potentially even the college, if even by the college's admission that they don't even use half the prompts in there. But yeah, otherwise, just like most of the people here, it is definitely just a freaking moral reactionary fucking feel.
Okay. Let's go to Captain A. Jones.
Yeah. So yeah, basically I agree with Alice, and I just kind of think that this seems like it's how would you call it? It seems like an accident. So like, or possibly like maybe not even an accident. And so yeah, this all seems a bit moral outragey, but what this also really feels like is maybe like a microcosm of it rather. But it feels like the recent recall of Gavin Newsom, where people, I think that a lot of the people who were mad, who may have signed the petition, uh, were mad about other things, or they're blame. Like when you ask people what did Gavin Newsom do? Oh, well, he went to the French Laundry. That's really it. That's it. So it just feels like people are mad about a ton of things legitimately right now during COVID, with losing their jobs or whatever is personally affecting them. And I think that this is an easy kind of punching bag for them to go after, because honestly, I don't really see much of anything here.
Okay. Tiberius.
Yeah, so usually it's a cold day in hell when I agree with Dooby and Smug, but apparently we're freezing today. Okay, anyway, to address this in any kind of way, to a large degree, is that I hate the moral outrages. Sometimes I get it a little bit here, but in a general state, I hate how we handle high schoolers with fucking kid gloves. We're like, oh, they're so susceptible. Actually, I want my kids to be susceptible in high school, because if you are going to grow as a person, you have to be you have to be susceptible to new ideas. Some of these are going to be a little toxic or dangerous, but if you don't live, you're not going to grow and develop as a person. On top of that, this is a high school class, yes, but it is a college accredited class. And we are assuming that these people, probably 17 or 18 years old, are of a mental maturity or competence that warrants that class being in there. So to a large degree, if I was a parent, and I'm not one, I would largely be like, all right, this is part of the course. You're in a college level class, you're going to deal with college level topics. I kind of get the outrage a little bit, but to a general overall view for me, I don't care. This is bullshit. Like, calm your shit down. The reaction actually bothers me significantly more than the actual action that was made. You're gonna put cameras in fucking classrooms? Are you kidding me? Get out of here. I'm gonna end with that.
Okay. All right, up into the panel.
I'm gonna say something
Okay.
really quickly. I see GSU in chat complaining. Okay, pretending that high schoolers don't know what sex is, right, is fucking batshit crazy. Like, I'm sorry, I was having sex at 12 years old. Okay,
Oh my God.
Jesus Christ.
we have the internet. These kids know what sex is, right? Having a writing prompt that says, "Hey, describe your first time" or something, isn't pedophilia. It's not that fucking crazy. If you don't like it, sure, I can understand the a helicopter parent thing. Just ask the teacher not to cover that. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, well,
I was
and
about
the
to
thing
say,
is
Dooby,
to
we
say,
shouldn't-
well, the thing is
Sorry,
just to
go
say
ahead.
again, to emphasize this again, though, like, there's no evidence at all saying that these students were required to engage in those prompts for their course. Unless this is like what we want to go down, if the teacher should, or like if it'd be okay for them to, like, we can go down our route. That topic's a little bit different than like what's actually going on.
I definitely get the sense that this was an accident. I'm not gonna fry from there. I don't think the school board would have approved it. But even with that, it's just in a general sense here. Yeah, I'm 100% with Doobie. I just didn't want to monologue earlier. You're telling me these kids haven't drunk? There's a 35% chance, being at the age of 18, they've already drank. There is a 35 to 40% chance, depending on where you are, that they've had sex already. Like, these may be mature themes, but quite honestly, they're already exposed to this. They're neck deep in it. Connor, go ahead and chew me out.
Okay, so I was gonna say, Dooby installed malware on my computer and I eliminated it, so that gave me like 20% better usage.
God damn
So we should be okay. I think I found it and I destroyed it. So basically, when it comes to the subject, I'm gonna try to channel my inner GSU. Okay, the problem. All right, like I actually am with y'all on one front, which is like, when you're 16, 17, 18, you need to be ramping up to be an adult. Okay? Like, you need to get fucking ready. There's going to be bigger problems than people talking about sex and drugs and rock and roll and fucking war and all that kind of shit. You got to get ready real fucking quick. That being said, I do think that the parents have some level of authority there. Let's say that what Smug Pug is correct, that they just use the prompts. They only use 6% of the book. They didn't use anything that had any gratuitous shit. Fucking awesome. Squashes the fucking beef, right? Like, there's no beef here. The thing that I do take issue with, though, is kind of like insinuating like, oh, these are teenagers who are just doing fucked up shit anyways. Well, nah, that's on the parents to decide when and where and how. And like, so to address what Alice said, Alice said, like, in an educational context, if you want to talk about sex, in an educational context, if you want to talk about drugs, that's different than encouraging kids to like explore chemical or sexual experimentation through an educational course. So like if you want to do the educational side of it, absolutely. But if you just want to say parents need to stop being fucking pussies and let me teach their kids about fucking jerking off and doing drugs, nah, and go fuck yourself a little bit.
Okay, if I can hop off of that. Okay.
And after that, we'll go to Alice.
Yeah. So, Connor, so like, basically the whole point here is, we don't have to treat, like, the teenagers like they're fucking like 4-year-olds. Okay, I understand. Like we can both recognize like we were pretty fucking weird when we were kids and did shit, and like that's the reality. But I think like the concern for me talking about like the describe your first sex scene more than anything would be kind of the power relationship between like teachers and students there more than like that's my concern about that as a whole is like we hear a lot of shit about like like teachers taking advantage of like their kids, and maybe this could cause some issue, and that's just my concern of having that present as a whole. I can understand that. I don't think there needs to be this moral panic, but I do think there's an interesting conversation to be had about kind of like this weird gray area, right? Some of the topics were about like the first time I killed a man, right? Is like from a narrative standpoint, like the ability to kind of like morally explore the thought process behind that would be so fucking interesting as like a teenager to think about and explore, because like holy shit, like when you get a kid to like really conceptualize like loss or like in that process of having murdered and like kind of all the different rationales that go through a person's head, like that is really complex shit. And I think maybe joy too, to understand what fucked up things sometimes people think. But like as a whole, like I think there's a gray area where we can explore some topics and maybe conceptualize like in an educational way about sex, but not just like, hey, describe your first sex scene, because that to me it's just a little bit weird.
Well, and to really quickly just explain some of the parental panic. The parental panic around these subjects is going to be that a toxic teacher is using this material in order to go after the kid. That's the
got him.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'm so sorry, buddy. But we already.
I was able to understand what he said.
Yeah, I think we got a piece of it. All right. We'll come back to you later, buddy.
Dooby.
All right, let's go to Alice, and then Ty, then Jason.
Man, I thought that Counterpoints got that virus removed. Anyway, I think the thing here is definitely like the educational context. Whoa. This book, was being used in a curriculum. It was supposed to be vetted. It wasn't vetted. Wow, that sucks. This book has some topics that just aren't necessarily appropriate. If you think about any other like educational material, we don't assign educational material that just happens to have like porn in it or something. Like you could arguably like assign some novel or something that just so happened to have a second half that was porn, right? You wouldn't like just be like, oh, that's fine. This is a somewhat similar situation in that the book was assigned for writing prompts that were not sexual. It was not assigned to cover sexual topics. It was not assigned to cover drinking. It was not assigned to cover writing about murdering someone. They wanted some very small subset of prompts from this book. So this was just a failure to vet it. Now back to again the educational topic. There's books that we do assign in school that do have controversial subjects like this, and they might even have violent or disgusting scenes in general. You can even think about just Lord of the Flies. There's sections of Lord of the Flies that are pretty gross. The topics are kind of mature to talk about, and that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. It's about kind of what the context was and why it was assigned, and essentially the whole piece, right? We don't say, just go ahead and skip that whole shovel scene in Lord of the Flies. We teach that scene. We teach that whole part of the book. But in this case, this book was assigned, and they were told, skip everything else. Just take these 6% of these prompts or whatever. That's the issue here. The issue is basically just like you assigned a book, you basically wanted some small subset, and a pretty large portion of this book is not appropriate for people under 18 to be taught in a professional setting. That's the issue here. The issue is not whether we should teach about sex in school, whether we should like teach about violence in school, whether we should teach about underage drinking or whatever like that. It's just somebody fucked up in this case, and oops, shouldn't have done that. Probably shouldn't have taught this book in school. That's all it is. Like, we could cover this in a great way.
Okay, so can I just ask Alice a question?
Okay, and then we're gonna go to Ty and Jason.
Just really quickly. So do you think that even given that this is like a college credit course meant for high school seniors, 17 to 18-year-olds, you think it's inappropriate to have, describe your first time with beer or whatever, your time you're trying to have an orgasm, or describe a sex scene you wouldn't want to tell your parents? You think that's something that these kids shouldn't be talking about in school?
With their teachers, yeah.
Even in a creative writing course.
Yes, even in a creative writing course. But there's context for this again. If you were teaching a creative writing course and for some reason it was, sexuality in writing or something, I would be assumptive that probably that course is going to cover sexuality. This was not a course like that. It's about context, and these are people who are underage, right? And that's kind of the problem here.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? So what about scenes like describing murder? Should they be reading and writing stories that involve murder or violence?
I was literally about to say this. Alice, have you ever considered the fact that Americans are terrified of sex but love violence? Have you ever thought of that?
I've already said though that a book that has a sex scene in it or something like that, I don't think that should be banned. I think that if you had a book that has some sort of graphic sex scene in it, I don't have any problem with that being read, talked about in a especially in a senior level class. That's not a problem.
Yeah, but what about a creative writing course, right? Not a book, like a creative writing course, and they're asked to describe some kind of violent act.
I would probably have equal of a problem. I mean, it would depend on what the course was. So like, I can't see very many reasons to have somebody prompt, tell me about the last time you masturbated. I don't really want to know that about a 16 or 17-year-old. That's not really appropriate for a 16 or 17-year-old to be talking about or writing about in a course with a teacher. That's not appropriate. That's kind of the issue here. And the same thing would be true of like violence, right? Tell me about the last time you murdered someone. I don't really want that topic for anybody, right? But these topics are just a little more than just talk about, write a scene of like a murder or a death or something like that. This was literally, tell me about the last time you masturbated. Write about the last time you couldn't orgasm. These are just topics that are just a little inappropriate for a 16 or 17-year-old to be engaging with an adult.
Ty, go ahead, please.
Oh God. Okay, yeah. So here's the thing. Like, I'm not on this rail at all because there's a level where it's just like, it's either like teachers are just mouths full or they're pedos or whatever. I'm like, I can't get behind this because simply, I'm going to break it down to this. If we're going to trust our teachers to give our kids sex ed, right? They're going to talk about masturbation. They're going to talk about sex. They're going to talk about all of that shit. But then you're not going to trust teachers that, hey, they're going to have that kind of conversation, whether it's in a different class or not. Why do we even have sex ed in class? Like, there's a complete breakdown here where I don't get it. We're going to trust teachers to teach our kids about sex, but then we're not going to touch our teachers to not talk about sex. Like, what the actual fuck? Like, where is this ideologically or like logically?
Roll it back. Roll it back a little bit. A sex ed teacher is a very different teacher than your English course, assigning a totally different set of prompts on accident. That's the difference here. A sex ed course teaching about sex ed is a very different context than someone accidentally having parts of a book they didn't realize had these topics in them. Like, that's the difference. It's about context.
And also, maybe we would trust teachers more if they stopped fucking 13-year-old boys. I mean, seriously, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like,
is this big citation needed?
No,
citation needed.
Ty, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, all right, dude. This is the kind of shit that pisses me off, right? Look, bad things happen, right? Teachers will fuck kids. That's not the majority. It's not even the vast plurality, right? Most teachers are good fucking people. They're trying their ass off. And quite honestly, most of them aren't paid good enough. They're not treated good enough. Like, literally, this is just fucking a massive distrust of teachers, dude. I love you, Connor, but no. Like, we have to give these people some real fucking credit. They're just trying to do their job. Sometimes maybe it's a little bit out of scope. That's why we have fucking school boards, is that we say, you know what, this is okay, this isn't okay. But I am 100% going to disagree on you that this is out of bounds.
Okay,
as a matter of fact,
push back quickly and go to Jason.
Okay, so as a matter of fact, fucking Captain A. Jones, I'm not even going to link you anything. Literally just type in teacher sleeps with student into google.com and scroll and let me know what number you get to when the story is not about a late 20, early 30-year-old fucking woman having sex with teenage boys? Just let me know what fucking number you get to before you have to stop clicking next button, all right?
But I feel like
No,
I
no,
feel
no,
like
no,
this
no, no,
is
no, 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 no. So Jason's
an
been waiting.
outlier.
Jason, we'll go to Rudy and then Captain A. Jones.
Let me make sure I'm unmuted this time. Okay,
You are.
good. I'm pro streaming now. Okay. All right, look. I get teachers teaching sex ed. That is one thing. That's a health class. They're not advocating their students to go have sex and talk about their experience. They're not advocating their student to talk about drinking beer. The prompts were advocating for that. I don't disagree that you should talk about, different subject matters. I don't disagree that you should talk about hard subject matters. I don't disagree that you should talk about many of these things. However, context matters. And those exercises were dog shit and the book shouldn't have been distributed. Now, the good point is that the school didn't try to have those kids conduct those exercises. Great. I'm all for that. That's great. They had the sight enough to say, okay, shit, we may have messed up. We at least got through the book far enough to see, like, yeah, we shouldn't discuss these. But it's just a simple matter of the book shouldn't have been there anyways. It's not the right environment for that. And yes, they're 18 or 17 or what have you, and they're going to go do what they're going to do. But, that shouldn't be the institution encouraging that.
So,
That should not be the institution encourking that.
Okay.
So
hey,
hold on, wait,
Brian,
no,
Brian,
no, don't,
I-
stop. Don't care. This this has been pissing me off. This whole thing. I hate it. I hate it so much.
Get him, Prime.
I don't.
Gosh.
I do not see. I don't see the particular damage that happens when a person who, and many oftentimes these kids, not all kids, but many oftentimes kids have actually experienced sex before, right? Like talk about like their experiences and their feelings. I don't understand I apologize. Alice's point. That don't look at me that way. I apologize. I don't understand Alice's point that teachers are like the writing teacher is somehow like a different breed from like the sex ed teacher, and that like these are topics that we discuss and we interact, and these kids they deal with these things, right? They deal with these feelings all the time, and giving them an outlet to work it out. I mean, that's not what happened. To be clear, that's not what happened. The school didn't actually give these prompts, right? But but just the principle of it all, to give them an outlet to work out these things when and I'm sure if you look at that book in its totality, right, you'd see other things, right, other interesting aspects of life that it's asking students to understand, but specifically sex, specifically this topic. This is the thing. No, we can this is the line and go no further. Why? Why?
I can answer that.
Kids deal with this constantly. They are and they're curious about these things, and they talk to each other about these things. Like, we all understand this. We're not that far up in age, maybe except for Jason, or so, not that far in age that we can't remember these things. So I don't know what is the fundamental like a difference here. What makes it? So
Can I?
we'll go to a wordy then Connor. All right, you can finally kind of
All right.
do other people.
Okay, so there's a component of culture where basically Americans are like, ugh, sex, but we can all acknowledge that, and we can understand that humans are dealing with that whole complex portion of like where a lot of kids are having sex and shit. But that doesn't mean we just have to go laissez-faire about it, right? There's a like to kind of bridge the gap between Connor and Tiberius here is like there is a complicated aspect where it's a series of complex interpersonal relationships, not just between the student and the book, but it's also the relationship between the teacher and the student. And basically here is Connor. I understand there is a skepticism to some extent about teachers, right? For the majority, teachers are not going to be trying to do this shit with kids, right? But the unfortunate reality is the mechanisms kind of set up incentives sometimes for parents to kind of abuse that. From like an anarchist perspective, that's what happens. And the problem comes is, a lot of parents aren't going to be involved in it. They're either like only coming for like the grading shit, and they're just not present for a whole lot of shit. And that's a problem on the parents there. But ultimately, that kind of like lack of transparency or lack of awareness on parents. And this is the complicated aspect, right? It's not just children here, but it's the relationship between their parents and the student, and the relationship different type of topics, right? Sex ed isn't talking about the interpersonal psychological relationships that comes with having sex and the sexual relations themselves, but in terms of just like learning how, like, hey, don't fuck without a condom, don't get STDs and all that shit, right? That's not interpersonal, that's not psychological, that is just like pure biomechanical. So looking at the whole complex relationship of creative topics, there is a way, I think, to healthily, constructively explore this, but on its face, just like say, hey, describe a sex scene, that is just like really just not really nuanced. It's just like on its face, not unabashedly nothing. So like I think personally you can explore things like murder. Like the whole topic was like about like the first time you killed them. It's not like actually they killed someone. It's just kind of exploring the psychological narrative. And so like
well,
it's
on the same thing about the sex scene. Like,
can I answer
the
this,
sex
please?
scene. It's
Love of
literally
God.
the same thing. All right, go ahead, Connor, Alice, Smug, Ty.
Okay, the reason why is because a teacher, like I'll actually describe why it's different. So if a teacher had a creative rating prompt around violence, that teacher very likely is not trying to engage in violence with the student. However, if you talk about sex from a creative standpoint, you're giving an academic pretext through which a teacher can be talking to their students routinely about sex. There's a power imbalance in these relationships. These people are fucking minors. And on top of that, not only that, but there is a sex abuse problem in high schools between teachers and students, people who are minors. So you're opening up this door for abuse that can be taken advantage of, because when a teacher is basically looking for people to talk, like young students to talk to about sex, they can hide behind an academic pretext in order to cover up predatory behavior. Whereas if you ban this topic, then there's no such opportunity in order to do so. And this is also why here's another real thing that I'm just going to fucking say. That, like, I'm pretty sure like 90% of fucking teachers are women. Seriously, it's bad.
Think that's the case.
And part of the reason why there's a sex abuse problem in schools is because an employment disparity between the fucking genders.
Oh, yeah,
if you want to stop seeing 30-year-old
What?
women fuck, I'm serious.
Squad W,
Citation needed,
boys.
button.
Squad W.
No, if you want to stop seeing fucking women banging fucking 15-year-old boys and shit, then you need to get some fucking male employees so they have normal people to talk to.
Wait,
I'm not.
Do you
All
think
these female
I'll back all
teachers
this
are
shit.
not keeping their pants.
Do you think
I'll
that male
back all of this.
teachers are less likely to want to have sex with female students?
No, but what I do.
So what are you
think
talking
is
about?
I'll tell you. So I think that if you
Exactly.
hold on, I'll tell you, because I'm familiar with the educational scene. There's
I don't want to spend too
there's
long on this because I want to focus on the actual thing, not just like sexual assault. Okay. All right, but finish your thought.
So the thought is that, like, so teachers work their fucking asses off, as Tyberius was saying. They're spending 60-hour weeks fucking working their fucking asses off. They don't have time for fucking social lives. They don't have the ability to date. So because they don't have fucking time in order to do that, and because they don't, I'm serious. I'm fucking serious.
Seriously wrong. Yes.
I don't give a fuck. So all right, let me go out on my fucking limb. All right?
That
So
explains a lot.
Okay, let me finish the fucking idea. So the point is, when you actually increase like a gendered representation in an employment space, it gives people to have a social opportunity to explore relationships that are socially appropriate. It gives them dating situations that are socially appropriate. I almost guarantee you that if you upped the masculine representation within like social institutions that are dominated by women, you would actually see a decrease in negative behavior because they would have better opportunities in order to find partnership.
Wait, why if we just lower the amount of hours that they're working? Wouldn't that have the same effect?
That'd be great.
We gotta. Okay, so I don't want to derail into this because I know this topic. I've dealt with Connor's opinions on this topic.
I just want to say something. As a parent, I sure as hell don't want my kid being influenced by books and shit, encouraging them to have sex and drink, even if they're already doing it. Why would I want to encourage them to do that more? Come on, it makes
this is bullshit.
Can I
I'm sorry,
address
this is
this?
bullshit.
It's bait.
No, this
What are
is
you talking about?
Bullshit.
Well, I mean, of course it's
Kids-
not.
your kids are
Obviously,
kids
for
are
younger
drinking
drinking beer?
people
No.
to kids are
Is what I
already
was
being
saying.
But
affected
Jason,
by
you
society
drink
at
and
large.
get high on stream. Like what are you
Yeah,
talking
like
about?
you
It
like
doesn't
you're not
matter. Like,
influencing your
oh
kids.
yeah, your
I
kids
don't
watch
want
this.
everything for my kid that I do.
Oh, okay,
Shit.
great.
God.
No,
Can I
this I do not understand. So Alice, Smug, and Ty. I do not understand this mindset. I don't get it. One,
We don't want
think
teachers
that-
fucking our kids. What else is there to
bullshit.
get?
Stop taking it there.
I don't want
it
them
does-
encouraging
and we
my
don't
child
have
to
take it
drink
there.
alcohol.
You assuming,
Like, that's the biggest
you
thing I
are
have.
assuming-
I don't want
you
to
are
have my kid be an alcoholic or drug
stop.
addict.
You are assuming that this the one thing necessarily leads to the other thing. Those are not necessarily the case, right? And then this thing about like, oh, well, then you give them an avenue to talk about sex. Well, then they can hide under this. We're going to use a disguise for predatory behavior. But then we have a thing called sex ed. We have a thing called sex ed where they talk about sex all the goddamn time, right? Why wouldn't they?
Classes,
That would be
it's
the way-
very clinical. it's a
or
clinical
gym,
class.
or gym,
it's not
or
romanticized.
gym. Who says this is romanticized? How is?
If
how
you're
is-
talking about your first orgasm,
Hold
you're
on.
going to be creative about it.
What? Hold on.
Hey, mine was not creative at
In
all.
sex
Okay,
ed-
I
was
can tell you
not
right now,
creative.
it was
It's
pretty
sex
fucking
ed.
boring.
Well, see, and I think first of all, I think that's even a problem with sex ed, and that sex ed shouldn't be. If it even is that clinical,
More
then it
expansive.
shouldn't be, because you want people to engage the topic, just like for any other topic. For any other topic, we want kids to be engaged, to feel like they are a part of whatever is happening, right? And to share their experiences and to integrate that within their lives, right? So if kids are having these experiences or wishing they were having these experiences, thinking about these experiences, why wouldn't we want them to give an outlet, a safe outlet in school, where else would it be? Because it's literally not going to be safe for anywhere else. They're going to look for an outlet for these things, and it gets worse from school. I think we can all agree on that one at least, right? It gets worse from school at the places where they could do this. Why not
So we
give them
should
an
let the
outlet
school legitimize that?
to discuss?
We should let the school
Yes,
legitimize
exactly. Yes,
that.
yes.
No, I don't want the school legitimizing
experiences.
my daughter
Legitimize
abusing
gay
alcohol.
sex, for instance.
No, I don't.
No. Legitimize gay sex, because a lot of those kids, right? A lot of those LGBT kids aren't going to get that kind of the talk to discuss these things, right? Their feelings. Like, there's no outlet. Media that so often doesn't cover their experiences. None of that happens, right? So yeah,
Wait.
give them an outlet to discuss these things. Like
You don't have to talk about
why-
sex in terms of personal relationships, though.
yeah, but people do have personal relationships. We talk about everything else in terms of personal relationships, like, and that's fine. But this one aspect of life, this is Puritan bullshit that I just cannot stand. I hate it. I deeply hate
Wait,
it.
wait,
That this
sex is
one
really-
thing,
Change
that
after you have
this
kids,
one
Prime. Let me
thing,
tell you.
that this one
Wait,
thing. I'm not talking
change.
about high
Care
school
about your
kids.
children.
We're not talking about middle school kids. We're not talking about elementary school kids. We're talking about high school kids. We're talking about high school kids who are just about to go to college. They're on a college prep course. But now, we
Yeah,
have
but
this
they're still
one
in high
subject that's
school.
impossible. All right. I got to. Alice, go ahead.
So, first off, nobody's, I think, going to disagree necessarily with giving kids a safe space to be able to talk about their feelings or thoughts on a topic, especially even a controversial topic. There's ways to do that. Sealed journals, for instance. There's ways to bring up this type of topic that can be a safe space for them to put their feelings down. That's not a problem. Here's my problem. Let's say you are in a college class. And it's an English class, and it's an English class that's been communicated to you as English 2 or English 1. I don't care. And you're doing all these normal prompts. You're not even doing prompts most of the time, right? You're writing essays. You go through the different types of essays. You learn about, convincing people with essays. You learn about each different type of essay. And then your teacher one day says, okay, we're going to do some writing prompts. I want you to write an X-rated Disney scenario. I want you to tell me all about mermaids fucking each other. Okay, next, I want you to tell me about the first time you had sex. All right, I'm going to grade you on this. Don't forget. And then I want you to tell me a whole sex scene, and I don't want you to be able to show your mom because it's got to be really graphic. This is not appropriate, right? You would say that in a college course, you wouldn't want that to happen. That would be inappropriate in a college course even, right? That's not appropriate. I would be offended. I'd be upset. I would probably drop that course for that type of stuff because that's just not appropriate. That's not reasonable. That's not asking me to talk about my thoughts or feelings about something. That's like just lascivious grossness. That is some of the prompts from this book, by the way. I was reading verbatim from the PDF of this book.
Yes.
So That's my problem here. The problem is not about talking about thoughts or feelings on this topic. I agree with you, Prime. You're right. There is a lot of Puritan attitudes. It's that the prompts in this book were not written for aimed at a children audience, essentially, because people under 18 are children.
But you're
I'm
saying
sorry.
people over 18 are the same thing. That's
No, I'm saying that as an adult, I would not want to write to my professor and be graded on a sex scene about Disney characters. I wouldn't want to write to my professor and be graded on my own last time I failed to orgasm.
so
I
the
don't want to be
individual.
graded.
The
So the
colleges aren't
individual.
assigning that
so-
to you. Then
so
the
the-
colleges aren't assigning those.
So the
prompts to you.
individual prompts. I think we can quibble about individual prompts here, right? And say like, well, whatever,
no.
right?
I'm not trying to quibble
no,
about
no,
prompts.
no, no.
I'm asking you to use your brain.
Don't
think
worry, I
about
always do
these-
that. You don't have to remind me to use my brain.
Think
Thank
about
you.
these prompts. Think about these prompts that we just talked about, and those prompts themselves. Do they do the thing you're asking about? You have a good point.
If you listen to me, then I'll understand. Then you understand. I'm saying that we can quibble about individual prompts, right, that are in this book, right? And like, are they the best to accomplish the mission that I'm even talking about? There is I can say there's a good way of accomplishing this and a less optimal way of doing this, right? And then a terrible way of doing this. But right, we can imagine like worse prompts about sex. That like, okay, like what is the point of this, right? We could do that. I'm saying though, I'm trying to look at the principle of the matter. That's what I'm focused on, right? Less these individual prompts and more the principle of the matter of talking about these issues and in a personal manner, right? Talking about your personal experiences. That's the heart of this. That's the heart of this, right?
Right.
Any individual prompt you can point to, right, and say, oh, okay, well, maybe this one is a little too much or whatever, right? You can do that, but like that doesn't get to the heart of the matter. Like, should we encourage an environment where kids can talk about these things? It seems like, Alice, you at least agree with that on principle that we can do this. Now, do you agree that it should happen within the context of a classroom environment with high school kids? Do you agree with that principle? Like moving away from any of these individual prompts, but just like, hey, let's talk about our experiences, your desires, right? Let's try to work these things out.
No, I don't think it should happen in the context of a normal English literature high school classroom. I think there could be a class that had this as the topic. I think that's
Okay.
possible, but it would need to be something that was discussed because I personally would not want to be graded on my personal sexual experiences.
Hold on. First of all, like, how could that doesn't even make sense. That actually doesn't make sense. One, because like, how could a teacher know if you had a sexual experience or not? So they couldn't grade you on your personal sexual experience. It's not a thing that could have
I'd
happened.
have to write about
But
something.
you have to write.
It's a creative writing
It's
course.
like
Make
creative-
something up.
My
Yeah.
God, can I fight about this,
Yeah.
please?
There's actually so there's this website that has plenty of videos that have a ton of these different scenarios in them. They're actually very realistic.
Yeah,
I
the
consider
kids
them
might as well go look
documentaries.
those up.
All right.
Most-
Guys,
most-
we'll
most
fight
fun, by the way.
we'll fight later
Have a
on.
need to
We'll
talk
fight
about
later
this.
on this. All right, go ahead, Smug, and then Tyberius.
Yeah, so we're kind of back to going to this back and forth shit about like we all agree that these prompts were not taught in class, but then we're going into these well in college. What if they told me how to write about like dreams or to explain this sexual instance or my sexual fantasies to my professor, like, and I think to a certain degree, like some of these prompts you can use, like I mean. In modern sex ed, the way that we're designing it through K through 12 sex ed, wherein the first 4 or 5 years, it's your sex ed is learning about self-identity, self-acceptance. Later on, you're learning about acceptance of other and communication. And when you get to high school, you actually learn about sexual intercourse, learning about identifying sexual communication. And I think in part, though, like for example, like if you want to use an example of where these prompts can be good, probably in a sex ed class. Probably it would be good in a sex ed class, like especially with the one where it's effectively when I see write a sex scene you wouldn't show your mom, and then it says like right under it, rewrite the same sex scene into one that you would let your mom read. Well, that's literally a fucking coding. That's literally a way that you can explain how we stigmatize sex and our communication with other people. And it's a prime example of showing how we stigmatize that act in an action that shouldn't otherwise be stigmatized later in life. And so like there is utility in some of these prompts, but like we're going back to like what started in the very beginning. We're going to these like extremes of like, well, I have to write my fucking my 50 Shades of Grey fanfic, and now I gotta get to my professor in hopes that I fucking describe my tonguing scene well enough for him to give me an A.
Okay,
That's not
that's
even
Ty.
the fucking problem.
Let's
Oh my
let's
God.
go
Oh,
to.
I mean,
There's
did
so much
you-
fucking
Ty,
I need to hit.
Ty's
I
already-
gotta at least hit the.
Yeah, Ty.
I gotta at least hit the highlight reel here. Okay, number one. When it comes to the influence of people, number one is that I absolutely rejected this as encouraged. Even if you ask a question, you one have the ability to say no, and we're treating people like they're fucking drones. Guess what? When you actually question people, there's times for being exploited, there's times of vulnerability. Here's the real truth of the matter. We have to accept that teachers are effectively surrogate fucking parents, okay? Whether you like that or not, you have to deal with that. Now, if you want to say you're going to outline this or outline that, I can get behind you on some of this deals, but they're going to have more intimate relationships. I don't know if I want to use that word. Pardon me. They're going to have more constructive relationships with them as they might as well you as a parent, because they're dealing with them just as much as they're dealing with you 8 hours a day in some cases, right? So is there a dynamic of vulnerability here, Connor? Yes, I will grant that. But vulnerability comes with growth. We're going to have to accept that sometimes some shit gets out of whack, bad things fucking happen, but we're not going to throw all of our teachers out of the fucking bin just because one or two bad things happen here or there. Go ahead, Connor.
Connor, where
You're
Jason.
right, but don't, as a surrogate parent who is not part. I vetted my fucking wife. I dated her for 5 years before I fucking married her, and she's still a fucking lunatic. And like,
Clipped and
and by
shipped.
the way,
Clip it and ship it.
so I don't want some random motherfucker that I don't know reading about my son jerking off as a part of a fucking class, and then maybe using that as a fucking way to leverage their intimate relationship into something else. Fuck no. Leave it
Connor,
alone.
can you
By the
really
way, hold
trust-
up, Dooby, I don't give
Get
a
it out,
fuck
get it
that
out,
at
get it
12
out.
you were shooting meth and having orgies. I don't give a fuck
Shooting
about
meth?
your weird
my God.
fucking inner
You don't-
city fucking poor bullshit,
Do
okay?
you shoot meth? I thought you smoked meth.
Yeah, he
I've
just
not-
had
okay,
orgies
I've
at 12.
never
It's
done
totally
drugs in my
unrelated.
life. Fuck you guys.
Oh my god. Okay, Dooby,
diverse
go ahead.
portfolio.
You're just gonna piss me off, but please go ahead.
Okay.
I did.
Connor, so you made this point earlier. Hey, we can't have these teachers talking to these children about sex because they might use this to get close to the children, and all these female teachers might fuck my son. Okay, sure, but given the fact that so many
Even if it's
parents
a
molest
male
their
teacher.
children, can we trust parents to talk about sex with their children? Given all the parents out there molesting their kids, Connor.
Okay, so yours. Okay, this is, by the way, when we're talking about like public education, we're talking about state mandated education. We're talking about
State
things that are
mandate?
enforced by the state.
States?
Oh,
shut the
shit.
fuck up. Shut the fuck up. So what you're telling me is that as a surrogate parent, I do not have the right to assert my authority as an adult over what my son is taught about fucking sexual subjects. You're saying I have to involve a third-party surrogate from the state
I don't think
for
you're
a
a surrogate
hypersensitive and
is what
hyper-important conversation.
I don't think you're a surrogate parent. I think you're just an actual.
Okay,
No, I'm saying
Connor,
the
Connor, what I'm
teacher's a
telling you
surrogate
is
parent.
that
That's what
because
Tyberius
so many surrogate parents out there molest their children, I can't trust you. How do I not trust you to talk to these children about sex? I'd rather have it done.
I'm not
in
talking
in
to
a-
your kid
in
about
the
sex,
educational.
motherfucker.
Okay,
I'm
okay,
talking
okay,
about.
okay.
I'd rather have it
About
done
the
in an
principal.
educational setting
Can I- like,
with
can I-
professionals.
Hold
Connor.
on. I want to, because Ty had the response. So
This is bullshit. And by the way, this is like when the right wing or the moderates or whatever, when we're talking about rhetoric that drives people fucking right, this is it.
Okay, Ty.
This is fucking bad.
Did I suddenly
I'm
become
a
like
little-
a
Connor, just
rabbit
remember that.
hole here? What the
Yeah.
fuck? All right. Okay, so Connor, look, I feel for you, dude. I 100% get it, but there is a point here where I don't logically make sense with this, right? If a teacher has almost full purview to do anything, whether it's on ground or not, now you can say state mandated wise that they can teach you this, that, or whatever, but we've already seen numerous examples that they can largely teach that in any interpretation that they want. So if a teacher does want to go, hey kids, this is what an orgasm's like, I can describe it that. We can fire that person for saying that, but they're at full liberty to do that, and there is nothing we could fucking do to stop that.
Fuck that.
Hey, wait,
Okay,
Fuck
okay,
that.
I want to hop
Stupid
on
ass.
this.
Okay,
Okay.
Wordy and Jason. No, Wordy, then Jason.
Okay. So first, I do want to clarify a misrepresentation. Connor, you were saying it was majority women. I just dropped something in the Twitch chat. So it seems that most offenders were male. And
I wasn't talking about offenders. I was talking about population of the general school.
I understand. I was just saying
Okay.
there was a bit misrepresentation, but kind of like going from an outside perspective, I can understand, Connor, is that we don't want these teachers kind of like being part of a public institution, having this authority over children, right? There's a difference between the relationship between a parent and child and a difference in the relationship between a teacher and student. And the problem comes is, while students may conflate that, we still have to ultimately maintain there is a delineation, a distinction between those two groups. And the problem that comes is we may have some blur between them in terms of like how friendly you are to them. Maybe you eat lunch with them and stuff. Like I did that with my teacher too. Like, and on a lot of points, I considered them sometimes like a second parent. I understand that. I also do think there is a way we can go about kind of developing the ability to communicate about this, but not the way of just like saying just have topics about it and all that shit. It's really kind of concerning to me is if we just have this, because teachers, Tiberius, have guidelines, they have policies they have to meet, and if they fail to meet those policies, they either get reprimanded or get fired or whatever shit. So like basically is the topic around sex, right? It's a intense, very intense, complicated subject, right? Murder can fuck people's heads up, but if you sexually abuse somebody, it fucks them up even more. And like that's the point here, is sex is much more complicated. And I understand is we can't necessarily stop students from exploring this, but we do have to figure out constructive ways of like either sealed journals or kind of a way where students can express their frustration with maybe their other fellow students and understand like there's the complicated relationship between teachers, right? Is it's about kind of an authority figure as opposed to a personal relationship figure.
Should parents not
just
talk to their students about sex? We're getting to what Dooby was trying to say. Like, it's authority figure talking to a child, complicated. There's nothing more complex between a relationship between a parent and a child. Most complex relationship, right? So, should parents ever talk to your kids about sex? Or if so, we find out about it, should we put them in jail?
Can I?
Yes.
Wait,
No,
wait,
no, no, no,
hold
no,
on,
no,
guys.
Wordy.
I do think there is a bit of a difference here, is that a teacher is an authority figure. You can have a personal relationship, but at the end of the day, they are not your family. They may be friendly, but they are not your friend. I consider there is a personal difference between a parent and child versus a teacher and student.
Isn't it?
What is this?
Happens, is done by like a family member.
It's yeah.
So that makes it even worse.
Yeah, family members can have more opportunity to abuse children. We know this, right? So,
can y'all think about the fucking sentence that you're saying? Can you think? Oh, no. Fuck this, Prime. Seriously, God damn it. You're saying that because sometimes parents abuse their kids, the state should be teaching my fucking kid through a creative writing class about their own sexuality. What the fuck is this?
That's not what I was saying. That's not what I was saying. Maybe pay attention
and I'll
to
be
what I'm
happy
saying
to listen
before you lose your shit over me, right? Like, I'm talking about the principle, right? I'm saying that the principle doesn't stem from the fact that parents might abuse their children, right? That has nothing to do with it. You're the one who brought in abuse. I didn't want to talk about abuse. You keep bringing abuse into this conversation. That's you,
because it's
not
important.
me. That's no,
it's
no,
an important
because that's what
factor in
you
this
think is
conversation.
important. No, it's not. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of this conversation. You have made it part of this conversation. But anyway, since you have dragged us to that point, right? And you're saying that that there is something special. You and Wardy are saying that there is something special between the teacher and the student relationship, and that we should not let sex, right, the conversation of sex, right, infiltrate that, because
that's not what I was saying.
Okay,
there's nuanced ways to approach it.
So, if this gets infiltrated, then this will somehow this could be an avenue for abuse. Well, then it just makes sense. Then there's another authority figure that has even more power, a more complex relationship, more opportunity to get up to mischief, I guess, whatever, right? I don't know. And that's the parent. That's the parent. So if that's the case, can parents not have these conversations at all with their kids? Because who knows, right? Well, this is an adult and authority figure. They might take advantage of this. I'm not saying that what you're saying isn't a possibility. I'm not completely dismissing that. It's definitely a thing that could happen, sure. Okay. But is that worth the loss utility of not having these conversations, and again, in a safe environment. And you may not, and those kids, remember, those kids may not be able to have this conversation at all at home. There are parents who are uncomfortable talking about sex, very uncomfortable talking about gay sex or the whole idea of being transgender or anything like that, right? Or they just may not have the proper information to be able to relate to their kids, right? There's a whole list of reasons why parents may not be able to do this. So there's school, and then there's the rest of the world where we leave kids to fend for themselves. Go ahead.
Can I come your way in like as charitably as I fucking can, and you
Sure.
tell me if I'm not understanding you, okay?
Okay.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're trying to say is that because there are families that do not educate their fucking kids on sex, because there's so much mixed messaging about sex, because gay, trans, pan, whatever kids don't have an opportunity to pursue these subjects, they are vulnerable to emotional abuse and inexperience, resulting in more negative outcomes than if they had an opportunity to express themselves in a safe place. And because families oftentimes are, for me, family is the safe place to have this conversation, but I'm straight, right? So like it's super fucking easy for me. But for other people who might have a more complicated relationship with their sexuality or sexual identity or gender expression or whatever, since they can't get it at home, they need an alternative to be able to figure themselves out. Does that seem like the steelmaniest position of what you're saying?
And for straight kids too. It could be, not just straight kids not just gay kids have issues relating to these things.
Okay, we understand each other. My fucking reptile brain went into fucking overdrive because what I'm hearing is that without my fucking consent, a third party is entering into a hypersensitive subject on an institutional level in order to educate kids about sex, and I think there's potential for abuse. The reason why I default to a sanitized version of sex, like sexual education, is because I think it's kind of hard to abuse it because it's so clinical, it's so dry, it's so that there's not like much room for like nuance or expression, because it's almost like a medical description of what's going on, not an emotional intelligence or anything like that kind of course, right? So what I would say is, if there was a way, because I'm trying to think about this on the fly, if there was a way to teach like emotional intelligence and relationship building and what's healthy and what's not healthy and all that kind of stuff, devoid of a sexual context, I actually think that should be a part of curricula so people can have like emotionally intelligent relationships. But the problem that I see is when you specifically tie it to sex, it becomes so charged that it's really difficult for people not to see fucking red, as we evidenced right here. Like you tell me, person that I'm not fucking a person that I'm not consenting to is talking to my kid about sex, I lose my shit. Whereas if you said like, I'm going to teach your, like, we're going to have an elective class, it's going to be about like emotional intelligence and good relationships and how to have good relationships. It's almost like a home ec class, but for friendships and relationships and how to be healthy and long-term and identify abuse and all that kind of shit. I'm sure there's some people that are going to be freaked out by that because they're going to wonder how toxic their own relationships are with their own kids. But I would see that as viable and useful.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm really.
Jason was next.
hold
Jason's
on.
been waiting, buddy. You have to put your hand up.
Here, here, guys.
No. Jason was next.
Let me quell some of your guys'
Jason, Ty,
frustrations.
Captain, and Wording.
Let me quell some of you guys' frustrations and anxieties about this, okay? Many schools already have like LGBTQ clubs where they have school counselors involved that talk with these students and allow them to express themselves. In my school, even back in the 90s, yes, I'm old as fuck, but even back in the 90s, they had programs, after school programs for LGBTQ students and for students who generally had questions about sex, where they could go into these environments with school counselors, people that are trained to deal with these sort of things and have those conversations. And yes, the parents had to consent to it, but most of the time the parents were willing because they saw an opportunity for their kid to do this in a safe environment. So it's already being done. It just doesn't need to be done in a writing class.
Yeah, but we're moving past that. We're going to the principle of the matter, whether that we should have these
Well,
type of
exactly. So
conversations.
it's already happening. So the principle is that obviously
Mhm.
a lot of schools and a lot of school districts say it's okay to do this, and I think in those contexts it very much is because
But
you're
if you
dealing
have
with
to
a
do it,
counselor, not just a teacher.
Oh,
if you have to deal with that in a public setting, then that's not an option for some of the people who are dealing with these issues. Like if you have to deal with it in like, I'm a part of the LGBTQ club now. Like, well, then you kind of just outed yourself, didn't you?
yeah.
You know?
But they
Let's
can
go.
still go to those same counselors to talk about that individually too, right? Okay, so it's already happening.
I still want to fight
Good
about that,
point.
but it's fine. Let's go to Ty. Captain H. Jones and Wordy.
Fantastic. I'm going to take a bit of Wardy's olive branch here. It's been a quick minute since Wardy talked, so hopefully I got the basics still down. So I largely agree with what you said, and I can totally get the outline of, all right, cool. Teacher relationship's different than a parent relationship. The problem that I have and where I'm coming from, and I think you understand this, is that the relationship of parent and teacher is so integrally similar that it just blurs so many damn lines that it's almost superfluous. Now, I 100% get that you want to keep them separate. Absolutely. I can respect that. The problem is that at a certain point, like, they literally just are other parents. And it goes with the whole community adage of, it takes a community to raise a person, or, it takes a village. I'm sorry, but you can't tell people openly that, you know what, you can talk to my kid about this, this, and this, but not this, this, and this. You're going to have a fight on your hands across the board on every fucking issue because a parent's going to say, you know what, you can teach my kid about this, but you can't teach about like that. Well, the other parent over here, it might even be the difference between mom and dad are going to say that's okay and that's not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I respect rules. I love law and order, but there's a point here where we're going to have to chalk this up to, you know what? We're going to have to more trust our teachers and our institutions that our kids are in their hands more than they're in ours in some regard.
No, okay. The reason why I don't like this at all is because there's state mandated curricula that makes sense. History makes sense. Mathematics makes sense. English makes sense. These are all things that you need in order to understand the society in which you live and in order to thrive as an adult. Some of these subjects are things that have to be left up to the culture. I do not like hell no. And people have plenty of different opinions on what is right and what is wrong outside of the fucking school system. And Prime, I get it. You're shaking your fucking head. But I'm literally telling you that, like, if you're trying, like, this whole conversation, I tried to steal man your previous position. I feel like I did an okay job.
I think you did.
If you're trying to get conservatives to run screaming in the opposite fucking direction, literally fucking tell them that, like, hey, we're gonna educate your kids on sex in nuanced and fucking interesting and creative ways, and you don't get to say shit about it.
You don't have to tell me that conservatives will fucking moral panic when there's a moral panic available to them. No, you don't have to tell me that. I get that, right? You don't have to tell me that conservatives can't deal with the subject of sex and gives them so many fucking hangups. It's unbelievable. No, you don't have to tell me that. Don't worry. I got that. I have that. Like, this is...
Can I back out? Can I back into this real quick? With
Ty,
yeah. Appreciate it. Look, you know what? I'm kind of socially conservative. I'm not super that way. You know, I don't want to get in my own personal litmus test here. What I can largely get is with this. Connor, I get it. And like, this is a big conversation. It's really important because we have to talk about what we're actually going to teach our kids in a private versus public setting. I have no problem with that in the guidelines. I don't know how you do not escape sex in a public setting. Their friends are going to talk about it. The teachers are going to talk about it. It is superfluous. Our culture loves sex. I mean, everyone likes to talk about how we're afraid of sex.
For adults. And
so your policy is to leave these people blind, and then we throw them off to college to where then they make all these fucking mistakes.
The problem is that you said that school, right, mandates these certain subjects, and these are the subjects you need to interact with society properly. Sex is a big part of human society. From the beginning, since humans were a thing, right? Since we started taking pleasure from sex, it's become a huge part of our society. And just say that this one thing is a thing that we won't touch, that we won't properly explore. I don't know why. What again? It comes back to the same thing.
To brief more
sex is important.
If you don't mind, that's to brief more modern sex ed. Modern sex ed that's being introduced is not just about, hey, this is how you fuck someone, or like this is how your dick works. It's like more modern K through 12 sex ed. It's more the first years are about learning about self-identification and how to accept yourself, about picking up on these various indicators. Later on, you're learning about communication with others, friends and stuff. Later on, and when you get to high school, that's where you start learning about sexual intercourse, where you start learning about communication, consent, picking up red flags in relationships. Like, these are critical for social interaction. These are critical things that you need to know to protect yourself in a society.
Let's go to.
I don't
let's
have
go
problem
to,
with any of those things.
Let's go to Captain A. Jones and then Wordy and Ty.
But this is teaching your kid how to fuck as well, though. That's part of it too, like because that's also part of like teaching your kid how to consent and shit.
Captain A. Jones.
But like you're against.
So, yeah, after listening to a lot of this, I feel like a big part of the Connor's not there, but it's fine. A big part of like the no, there he is. A big part of the problem that maybe or something that would solve a big problem for like the Connors of the world is like maybe just teaching kids at a really early age what is and is not appropriate touching. And that's something that has to fall on the parents. But I think that this would like satisfy Connor's I'm not going to say obsession. I just have no better word over the teachers fucking the students. I don't think that that's like a real.
Can I ask you all about a parallel?
Like an actual problem, but like sure, that would help with that. And it would help with like all these other situations that you're talking about. If a teacher did something, well, then at least the student would, the person would be able to recognize it and know that this is inappropriate and know that it's bad. Like one thing that you hear from a lot of sexual assault victims is that they did not know they were being victimized. They had no idea. They were not taught the basics of what that would look like and what that might be. So like, yeah, I just want to kind of keep that in mind a little bit because I think that would satisfy a lot of the negative parts that have been said so far.
Okay, Prime. I want to propose a parallel, and I also want to address what Captain A. Jones just said. So I already said that teaching kids how to conduct them, like as a matter of fact, what Smug Pug said, I don't think I had a problem with any of that stuff. Teaching people how to identify themselves, identify what they're into, whatever. And then also teaching them like about consent and how to navigate relationships and be emotionally intelligent and recognize abuse. All that's fucking based. That's awesome. I think where it jumps the fucking shark for me is where you start asking more of these like creative things. And I don't want to revisit the prompt. But basically like exploring these things in subjective ways. If you were just talking about like psychological evidence for how to conduct yourself within a relationship or the physiological nature, kind of like how we were already talking about how like sex ed can be like hyper medicalized and clinicized, then it's up to the individual to romanticize these things as they grow up. And it's up to media and culture and families to kind of tell them how to interact with that in a responsible way. I think that's a perfectly fine way to conduct society. One of the things that I wanted to ask, because I think it's an interesting parallel, is the way that y'all feel about sex. This is actually really weird, but I want to bring it up. The way that y'all feel about sex is the way that I feel about violence. I feel like violence in our society is stupidly interacted with, in which you're either like a sociopath or you're a hyper pacifist who doesn't know how to defend themselves in situations in which you're just getting abused. So my parallel to this question, which I'm actually really curious to get the answer on, is would you be similarly willing to mandate at the school level that kids learn self-defense, that they learn combatives, that they learn how to recognize abuse, that they learn how to recognize like bullying,
Wait.
that they learn how to deal with like negative violent interactions, that they know how to recognize crime, that they know how to recognize how to extricate themselves from dangerous situations. Are these things that you would be
that sounds based as long as well as getting maybe teaching motherfuckers how to do some goddamn taxes. That sounds based as well. Right. We should definitely be teaching more stuff. But just a clarifying question.
Counterpoints. I agree with you. Like in Japan, like girls are taught self-defense. Everyone there is basically taught martial arts, but predominantly it's emphasized with the women there. All the way throughout their school age, all the way up through their they call it like university, but it's like high school days. And so these people are trained to defend themselves. And so and that's fine, and that does act as a deterrent to keep people from fucking with them. So yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah.
Okay, so if y'all want your fucking emotional intelligence, fucking anti-abuse sex classes or whatever, and you give me my fucking combative self-defense classes, then we can compromise on this shit.
Ty, wording.
Yay!
Yeah.
Would you be okay?
Build the world
Would you
game.
be okay with your boss talking to you about sex
Ty.
and asking
Depends on
you
the
to write about
context.
sex?
Yeah.
I
It
talked
really
to my,
depends on the context.
I
Yeah.
talked to my boss.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I've had-
Captain's boss is hot. That's what's going on.
In the age of sexual harassment and all the shit that we hear about, and Me Too and all this shit, you'd be totally fine with like bosses doing that? Because essentially teachers are bosses, right? To their students.
Am I going to be the only one who says that I don't want my boss talking to me about sex? Like, am
No, I
gonna be the
agree
only
with
one
you.
who says-
No, I agree with you.
Ty.
Well, there's an obvious
Hey,
context.
look,
in
I
which you're
want to
being
Ty.
educated about it.
Ty.
All right.
Like,
Just as a thing with Connor, because I want to rewind just for a second here. Look, we were talking about how high school is preparing people, or young adults or young children, whatever the words you want to use for it, for adulthood, right? We agree on this. I don't know how you don't touch this subject with a fucking sledgehammer and not openly be like, all right, we're in the process of prepping you. Now, at least you got the compromise there, because I'm going to say yes to your question. Yeah, we should teach people self-defense. I'm encouraging people to grow as much as possible, and self-defense is definitely not only a martial skill or a measure of discipline, but it also teaches you how to be an effective person as a physical entity. 100% I'm okay with this. I want people to grow. I want people to learn, and sometimes bad shit happens. I'm sorry I'm repeating myself, but you know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
Sure. Especially,
I just,
wait, Wordy,
can
really
I
quick.
ask a clarifying question?
No,
Connor?
that's
Do you
not.
believe-
That's not
sitting
Wordy.
here.
No, Wordy's been waiting. That's not Wordy. Really quick. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, is I'm sympathetic to both arguments, right? We recognize that like our society is like a complicated push-pull between different institutions and different influences and authorities. We understand that. So Connor, I understand is like you're placing this value, this like parents should be the ultimate arbiter on some level. Because like there's the complicated aspect is like you fucking like either adopt or give birth to this person and you're like literally in charge of their entire life. Like I understand, like he considers like the family as the core social unit. I think it's a little more complicated than that, right? Is I think parents need to be involved in this conversation and this communication. But I do think we have to recognize is we've offloaded a lot of responsibilities to institutions. And so the problem that comes in the relationship is it should be a communication effort, right? Is we shouldn't prevent parents from talking about this or communicate this, right? I do think personally, if like parents come and say, hey, we have some concerns about different topics being taught and ways of a nuanced relationship, right? I think the parents and the institutions, if they both exist, come to a compromise. And this is why I think not necessarily preventing this, but finding nuanced ways of communicating, be able to discuss this, and not just saying, oh, here's a topic, discuss it, write a sex scene or whatever. I think there is a way to go about this. Like you have therapists and you have counselors and you have the parents all involved to kind of like help deal with the issues happening. And I disagree a little bit, Smugbug. Is a lot of schools still do abstinence only education, like in Arkansas, it's a pretty big thing. And two is while we may be seeing improvements, we have a lot of old draconic laws around sex education. So like basically it comes to a complicated aspect where Tiberius, I understand there is a significant conflation between these two groups, right? Is like the parents to student and or parents and teachers and students and children. I understand like there is a significant blending, but we do understand even if there is a blending, there is at least a little bit of a delineation in terms of relationship. So that is
Wordy, just to caveat though what you said, like so I never stated like the system I was talking about was already full place enforced everywhere. Like the system that I'm saying, like it's starting in a lot of the more liberal states that are passing it at the moment. So yeah, I do like so I agree with you. Yeah, there's a lot of like especially in the South.
But do you really quickly, one of the ways that you can circumvent the complication of this issue or whatever is you can make it voluntary. So for instance, like if Prime was saying like kids need an outlet, so they need to be able to go to these classes about emotional intelligence and abuse and all that kind of stuff on a voluntary basis, that's fine, because then the more conservative parents can say, hey, don't talk to my kid about that shit. I'm going to teach him my version of that shit at home. And then on top of that, for the self-defense classes, no offense, I get it. Everybody's fucking holding their hand up here, but I guarantee we start throwing on fucking gloves and teaching kids to hit each other in the fucking head or do some grappling. Some of y'all are going to be calling in a lot of fucking sick days at school. All right.
So when you teach self-defense, do you have to fucking be knocking each other out to teach self-defense?
Well, I mean, I would.
Like,
Well, this is why.
Like,
Yeah, learn how
goddamn.
to
What?
man, come on.
Like, are you saying my teacher's gonna be like, what? Are you saying you're talking about teachers abusing kids? You want your teachers to be throwing fucking right hooks
I
at
think
them?
this says a
Like,
lot
goddamn.
about why.
Real quick.
Oh, you
This
gonna learn
explains
today.
a lot about why Connor is like so
extremes
against
here.
teachers. He wants them to
God
literally
damn.
throw our children around and shit.
Connor,
He wants the teacher to go, okay, little
Ty.
kid, get
Listen,
ready for
it's better
shit.
than fucking them, all right?
Connor, wait.
Hold on,
I say there is a problem in our society though. Is like, you would acknowledge this. Is like a lot of conservatives say, hey, I don't want anybody talking about this, but this is the abstinence only education, right? This is the product of conservative influence. It basically fucks over a lot of fucking people. So like, we have to understand, it's not just like. I understand the desire to have a voluntary thing to where parents can purposely involve themselves, but we also have to acknowledge that it is complicated because a lot of these kids, like maybe they're queer or some shit, and if like conservative parents opt out of that shit, that basically fucks them a lot. So we have to understand.
This is where you're the world's worst anarchist. Because basically you're like, hey, on one hand, people are going to opt in order to do stupid shit, so we have to factor that into our consideration. Alternatively, they shouldn't be able to opt out of fucking stupid shit.
Connor, I'm saying the voluntary thing on a personal ideological level, I agree that it should be voluntary, but we do have to understand there are negative externalities that are often weighted in our society already. So we have to figure out ways we can kind of like mitigate them this way we don't fuck over kids who basically are either queer or maybe they're super fucking horny all this shit and it's just like they don't get fucked in this process.
Yeah, but okay, but that's where I would say like voluntary is important. So for instance, like we were kind of talking about, like Jason was mentioning that like there were LGBTQ clubs at school or whatever. Well, for some Christian conservative families, if you say that you're going to LGBTQ club, they're gonna be like, fuck you, fuck no, you're not. I don't even care if you're just an ally. You're not going to that shit. So that's basically a problem in and of itself. Whereas if you were saying like, hey, this is like an emotional intelligence class. It does involve some sexual themes, but basically we're trying to teach kids in order to be more responsible and intelligent in the way that they interact themselves. That's a lot more vague while still be able to cover very important ground. So like that's where that's like, where I think voluntary is important. Like it's very important to this conversation. If you start mandating this shit, y'all are fucking.
I'm not saying mandating. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is I can understand the sympathy behind those conversations of wanting the mandate because it's a fundamental foundation is society's getting fucked to some extent. So I understand I want to promote more voluntarism. I just understand there are some constraints that come with that voluntarism that we have to figure out ways to like providing more outlets, more alternatives for these kids to be able to pursue it without getting like harassed by their parents.
I'm gonna make you a fucking statist. That's my
okay. All right. So Ty, go ahead.
Just so the last thing that Wardy said to me. Look, 100%. I don't think that what you have told me or that you have said is without merit. I think you're 100% at least have ground to stand on here. I may be, and I meant this just as I'm a flawed human being. I may be selling this down the river where I'm giving teachers too much leeway. I don't know. Maybe I need to think about it a little more. But in a general sense here. Yes, I'm probably overly blurring this to you because I don't see I see the integral role of a parent versus a teacher so uniquely similar that it's really, really goddamn hard for me to separate. That might be my failing. I know Connor wants to kill me already, but that in a general sense is that these roles are so common that to separate them almost in any way is at this point kind of ridiculous to me. But hold on, let me make the one big clarification here. I don't have kids, right? I haven't, gone through that particular process. I know that's that's probably gonna change me in some ways, if that ever happens anyway.
I'll be waiting for the apology vid.
Yeah, that's fine, cool. If I do, I will happily admit that. I'll happily, like, hey, I changed my mind on this, whatever. What I'm going with is that, look, you as a parent are the final authority. I 100% get that, if something bad happens to the kid, you're going to feel bad about it. You're going to feel responsible, even if it isn't you who fucking did it. Okay. So that's where I can totally get on that side. That's where I can separate that out because the teacher is only on a certain level of playing field here.
Okay. And this is what I want to explain to y'all. Cause like for the people who don't have kids, I literally don't think you fucking get it. If there was 50% of a fucking chance that participating in like panel shows hurt my child in any way, I would stop doing them tomorrow. If there was a behavior that I was engaged in that was hurting my child, I would stop doing it tomorrow. And the reason why is because I'm like, just a olive branch here. I might be thinking with my fucking like monkey brain here.
You are.
But that is the well, fuck you. Number one. Number two, that kid over there, like 20 yards away from me, he is the most important thing that I will do on this planet.
So
he
wait,
is.
Wait, hold on.
Hold on, Captain A. Before you fucking mean, you're gonna piss me off. You're gonna fucking piss me off. I want to emphasize this. Like, and I'm planning on having a fucking second kid. There's not a single thing that I would not do for that person. So if I open that person up to abuse, or if I open them up to being fucked up, or if their lives are fucked up because of some choice that I make or some choice that the fucking states make, that is like, I'm not kidding you. I'm not going to do any kind of TOS fucking statement or whatever, but there is not something that is more emotionally motivating to me. There's not something that makes me more angry, and there's not something that I won't nothing. You kill my kid or hurt my kid, there's nothing that I won't do to you. You will have a painful fucking way out. We'll put it that way.
Cool. So that's like, I just want to know, like, so you're like so if a hobby or like something that they do has a chance of injuring them, like, is there like a percentage chance that you're looking for? Like, well, you wouldn't let your kid like ride a bike. Riding a bike is pretty fucking dangerous. Going into a pool.
Yeah, no, it's real. That's a real question. That's a good question.
Not exactly. I mean, I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of parents who do like helicopter parent shit, and so like they draw the line right there. They're like, no, my kid's not gonna skateboard, for instance. My fucking dad actually tried to stop me from skateboarding.
Well, he was a genius, and you're an asshole. But no. But to answer your question sincerely, yeah, it's always going to be like a cost benefit analysis. So for instance, like, if I think that the amount of pain and risk involved in the process is going to give them a skill that is going to allow them to survive as an adult in a better way, then I will allow them to take that risk. But if I think that there is pure downside or the risk is too high, then I'm not going to allow them to participate in that activity. And by the way, like I'm using skateboarding as an example, by the way. So like, there's plenty of sports that don't result in like grievous injury. Skateboarding is one of the sports that I think is just like, it just is grievous injury. Like that's all it is. So like, I don't know like what like mechanical, physiological benefit or like sociological benefit you personally have like received from skateboarding, but I'm assuming like I have a brother who fucking like, he literally got knocked unconscious and was found wandering the fucking streets because he was hit by a fucking car while skateboarding. Like that. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't see any fucking advantage.
The dangerous thing in that example.
Well, it was a hit and run, so he was fucking. But
so
okay,
then maybe letting your kid go outside is the bad thing.
It's
like, don't let.
Okay, all right, fuck it. Let's not debate skateboarding. I'm just saying that it's a cost benefit analysis.
The question. No, but I think there's a point of like
you're begging me to ask these questions.
Well, you're the example.
How do you weigh that though, like with what your child wants to do? Like if they want to engage in any activity but has in your mind no perceived skill or benefit. But I think that's ultimately goes to like Captain's helicopter parent claim is effectively like at this rate, then you'd imagine you'd already have like a fucking tree graph, you know, like of their life already planned out as like, hey, you're going to this school, you're going to be doing these activities, you're going to be doing these courses because this will get you into like, you know, Harvard, which will get you this job, you know what I mean? Effectively you planning out their life.
Yeah, but see, hold on. This is really important, so I just want to talk to it. And Jason, I know you want to talk to, but like, I only control them until 18. At 18, whatever I have done, it is their ship to sail at that point. So all I can do is I can set them up for success while they are under my household. That's all I can do. And after 18, they have to make their own decisions. And this is one of the things that was really triggering about this conversation, by the way. I understand there's a lot of important concepts to talk about when somebody's 16 or 17, because there's a lot of risks at that age. But what I would say is the reason why nobody gives a fuck about 19-year-olds talking about booze or fucking sex or any of that kind of shit is because they're adults. They're going to be making the choices that they have to make. And if their parents fucked up 0 to 18, then that's kind of on the adults and that's kind of on the kids. Whereas under the age of 18, they're still under the purview of the parent. And this is where it gets really fucking insulting as an adult and as a parent. Like you're saying, like a whole bunch of parents suck ass. So like maybe they need better education from school. I'm not going to suck ass as a fucking parent. It's my number one priority. It's the only thing I give a shit about.
Okay,
Church.
Ty
So-
and Jason.
Yeah, okay. So the first point of where Connor was not on the last one, but the one before that was, look, I can empathize with this part, right? If you come after the few people that I really care about, right? I want to take up the sword against you, right? It doesn't matter if it's a small thing or a big thing. I hate you. You are the enemy. You must die, right? I can totally, I can totally empathize with that and that mindset. What I can't empathize with, and maybe that's something that I have to get in metrics and values, is the level of risk that you are associating when you let teachers talk about this. That's where I'm not lining up with, is that people talk about all these kind of things all the time, whether it's in this setting, that setting, or another. That's where I have an issue with, is that you need to sell me on this idea that teachers are somehow, going to fuck over all our kids and whatever. They're going to, rape them all and shit, which I'm not trying to say that you're advocating that's going to happen, but that's the feel that I'm getting from you, man.
They're public employees making $40,000 a year. I don't think they should be teaching my kid how to handle fucking scissors, but whatever.
What?
Oh,
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What are you saying?
The idea that somebody making $40,000 a year.
Because they're
What the
public
fuck
employees
kind of
and they're
take?
underpaid, you don't want them teaching your children about sex. They're educational professionals in the school setting. This is literally
Yeah, the
Okay,
amount of
Dooby,
money
are
they
you-
make
are you
does not
upset?
fucking have anything to do with
Please,
the
hold on.
knowledge
I need
that
some
they
level
can
of
then pass on to
consistency from
their
Dooby.
children.
Hold on. I
Wait,
need
hold
some
on.
level of
No.
consistency
How
from
does the
Dooby.
amount of money they make have anything to do with the amount of knowledge they can
Their
pass on to
ability.
their children? Ask me.
Okay.
Answer me
I'll
that.
tell you because
Please.
if Smug, I have a vibe that like Smug Pug is a public employee in the education system, and maybe Alice
No,
is
I'm
too,
not.
based off of some of the reactions.
They're gonna
Okay.
rape them all because
All right.
all people making under a certain amount of money are just like
It's not-
naturally
wait, let's-
inclined.
let's-
I
Can
mean,
you
fuck,
wait
they
it?
just don't
No,
make enough
yeah.
money.
Okay.
Can you wait a second?
If you make
Can you
under
wait a
30
second?
grand,
Okay,
you're
let-
just
let-
like, yeah, fuck it.
Let him
Can you wait?
respond.
All right. I worked in public service making $40K a year. When you're working in public service making $40K
It's a
a
little
year,
bit sus. I don't know.
you shut the fuck up. There's two people who
I
are
don't know how I feel
attracted to
about
that job. People who are passionate about the job and love the job, and those people are fucking awesome, and there's heroes. And then there's people who are fucking lackadaisical, don't give a fuck, and are just trying to catch a bare minimum fucking check.
Three people.
Those two people who are fucking employed in public service making less than 50K. Guaranteed.
You described three people.
Wait, I'm sorry. So
I said there
because
was
not
passionate people
every
and there were pieces
teacher
of shit. Who's the third?
is super passionate about their job, that makes them rapists? I'm just
Yeah, I guess if
I'm
you're not
trying to
passionate
draw the
about
connection
it-
here.
Damn it, why?
If you're passionate about child education, you can't possibly molest the children. You just would never do it. This is ridiculous. Connor.
I have.
Come on.
I have
Okay,
one more thing
That's
that I wanted
not
to
I'm
say.
saying
something you
it's
just
like
say.
if
It wasn't
I were to
really
say
I just
something
thought
like
it was relevant to what I said.
It's like if I were to say something equivalent about cops, like
Captain,
all
Captain,
cops
You
are bad.
do. Hold the
Connor.
fuck up. Y'all do.
That is
all the
100%
fucking time. No,
ACAB.
Captain A. Jones, shut the fuck up for 30 seconds.
Okay.
Y'all say bullshit like this all the fucking time about
Oh,
cops.
maybe
And I
that's why
assert
those
the
are
same
bad
thing about
arguments.
fucking teachers, and
Holy
you get on your
shit.
fucking moral high horse.
Wow.
Shut the
Okay.
fuck up.
You are
fucking-
getting it,
okay.
Connor. We're
Shut
this
the
close.
Actually, not true. I say this sort of
Connor, I
thing
got one thing
about
for you.
people.
Okay.
I say this sort of
There's a
thing about
guy
people
for
who.
Dooby.
All right, no.
Ty, finish what you were going to say. Then Jason.
Yeah.
Then Maureen.
Okay. Just the one other thing that I wanted to add on to, it's more of a superfluous point. Is about like, all right, up to 18, you got this point. Look, I get the legal ramification. All right, 17, you're a minor, 18, you're adult. I think it's a little bit fucking ridiculous in that mindset. But let me give you this. Even when you're fucking 50, Connor, your kid's gonna ask you for advice. You're still gonna have levels of influence on him, and you're gonna be an integral part of that person's life until the day you die, right? That influence might be more so when they're a kid, but it even extends into adulthood. So let's not act like it's just all of a sudden you just drop the floor as soon as they turn 18.
No,
Well, it's a chemical thing. As soon as you turn 18, it's not the law at all. It's actually
Shut
a
up,
chemical
Joe.
change that
Okay,
happens in your
okay, hold on.
brain.
Perhaps
As
we
soon
gotta
as you
go.
turn
We gotta
18.
move on. We gotta move on. Respond
Okay.
quickly. Then we gotta do Jason. I'm ready.
Okay. The reason why 0 to 18 is so important is because people make incredibly important, life-changing decisions between 18 and 30. It's just the way that it is. The career that you choose, the jobs that you choose, the partners that you choose, the sex that you have, all of that is so important for the human being that you're going to be. And by the way, like this is kind of a fucking meme, but I don't know if I'm going to be around when I'm 50. So everything that I have to fucking do, I have this window to put in the lessons that are going to make my son a successful, happy, healthy, functional individual, and I don't even know if I have the next fucking 18 years to do it. I don't even know if I have that much fucking time.
Right. So
we got
yeah,
to
I'm
move
sorry.
on. Let's go to Jason and then Wordy.
Yeah, I think we're blowing a lot of this out of proportion. Like I said, a lot of this stuff is already happening in our schools. It works. It's good. That's why we have counselors. That's why we do have some programs that are in place to address these issues. It doesn't always need to be in a creative writing class. There are places within the school systems that do provide these types of resources, both anonymously and unanonymously. It's ridiculous that we're fighting about something that's already a moot point because it already exists. And should it be expanded in a way that further includes people and allows them some anonymity? Absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, but I think that's something for a school counselor or somebody with that kind of education to do, not necessarily a teacher in a writing class or in some other class. Setting and context is everything.
Okay.
Connor, if they were making 80,000 a year, could they teach your kids about sex?
Sure. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Wordy.
Oh, God. Okay. Fuck all ideology at this point. I don't care anymore. So basically no, fuck you, Connor. Okay. I love you, but fuck you. Okay. So Connor, I understand you have like a real parental concern. That is like your entire mirror vision right now. I understand that. Like you are caring about your kids. That's good. I respect that. But the fundamental problem is you think about the relationship to institutions, the relationship between dynamics, right? Is we think about the interpersonal, unofficial dynamics between parent and child. We think about the official ones between teacher and student. And the problem is fundamentally kids, and this is the recognition, is while we may like legally make these distinctions, to some extent, there is no real distinction because ultimately it's the same feeling of control by these children. They feel controlled both by both sides, and they can feel issues with expression through either parents or through teachers feeling stifled on one aspect. And so that's the problem here is we try to teach them, but ultimately we understand that as a single person, we are unable to fully fix that. Like as a parent, you can do your fucking best, and that's good. You try your damnedest. And like I understand that. But understand like we can't do everything. We are fallible, we are imperfect, we fuck up all the time. And so ultimately understanding cooperation, working with different groups of people to kind of maximize the best outcomes in that relationship. That's ultimately what this conversation should be about. Like we understand we're improving in society, but fundamentally that question still has to come up is like how much control do we give to different institutions? How much do they get to control us? And how much does this affect the child? And Captain, I love you to death, but please stop being a dipshit here, okay? Like
It's okay,
Connor is being really bad at communicating right now to some extent, but I also don't think you're being helpful here.
So yeah, no, I don't think Connor's being like very fair though to the other side of the argument. He's just saying like that he cares about his children a lot. But like, what about all the parents that don't fucking give a shit about their children or like
don't necessarily have their best interest at heart? Like that basically like parents who like just want to live through their children again. Like whatever they're despite whatever the child wants.
And let's just remind everybody that the parents at the crazy parents at these fucking teacher school meetings are probably they probably think that they're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? They probably think they're being good parents, but are they?
Okay.
Who the hell is the school to make that decision?
Thank you.
Wait,
okay.
did you ask who's the school to make the decision that a parent's bad?
I didn't say the school should make that decision.
Like Jason, like we're society. We live in a society. We can look at the parenting habits of these people and say, hey, that's a bad thing to do. You shouldn't do this, even if you're the child's parent.
So
that's not what I'm talking about.
I'm talking about making decisions about the conversations that you have with your children and what conversations are had. Parents need to be involved in that. And you know what, for that matter, if a parent isn't involved in what's going on in the school and isn't aware of what the school is teaching, then they're a shitty parent. Because I know every damn thing going on in my kid's school. I'm there all the time. You see me streaming all the time. When I'm not streaming, I'm working and I'm at my kid's school because I care enough about what's happening with the curriculum.
All right, so
but the thing is though, with that though, like with like parent involvement can be fine, but it's kind of like as Wordy referenced earlier, you know, like with the app with a whole lot of schools that are involved with abstinence. The issue is we have like these issues where these ultimately that we know, most of us are well versed on this shit, that abstinence only education results in almost exclusively negative outcomes, like very early pregnancy where you know, where these people are put into bad situations. However, though the parents, obviously, they think they're in good situations. They think that, they don't think, you know, I'm just teaching my daughter to stay away. But,
okay.
you know, I'm sorry, I'm just kind of like,
No.
it's just this idea, like, it's like a no shit claim. Obviously, the parents think that they have the best interest of their child, but if we have information that states the opposite, then the state, in this case, the education system, does have the right to be like saying, no, that's not how this actually works in reality. This is what more likely would happen.